Divine and mysterious immortality. I start my cultivation by adding points as a butcher. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Human Relations and Worldly Wisdom. Late at night, the banquet at the third princess's mansion was gradually coming to an end. Wei Hong finally found an opportunity to talk to Medicine Granny in private. He raised his glass and went forward to toast, saying with a smile, "I heard that the senior goes into the mountains to collect herbs all year round, and is also proficient in pharmacology. I wonder if you have any herbs on hand that you are willing to sell." Oh. Medicine Granny was interested. Her turbid eyes were shrewd, and she glanced at him up and down before revealing a creepy smile. "Are you also a doctor?" "No." Wei Hong dispelled the other party's hostility with one sentence, and chuckled, "I am a poison master." Poison. Medicine Granny's face froze and she subconsciously held her breath. The smile on her face was dull for a moment, and then immediately became a little more enthusiastic. If Wei Hong was a pharmacist, she would still worry about someone stealing her business, but if he was a poison master, there would naturally be no such problem. There are only benefits and no harm in making friends with him. At least such a person must not be offended. "I didn't expect that Master Zhang could actually poison." Medicine Granny said tentatively, "When I go into the mountains to collect herbs, I will indeed encounter a lot of poisonous herbs. I wonder which one you want." "Any poisonous herbs, poisonous objects, and poisonous insects above the refining Zhang realm are fine," Wei Hong said calmly. "Even if they are not poisonous herbs, many warming and tonic medicines can also have miraculous effects when added to poison powder. I can buy them at a high price." Oh. Medicine Granny became more interested after hearing this. Most people would have to avoid poisonous herbs in the refining Zhang realm. He dared to buy and refine them. It can be seen that this person's poison skills are probably not low. I wonder which family he inherited from? However, it is a taboo to ask people about their master in the martial arts world. Medicine Granny is old and wise, so she naturally won't say much. She just nodded and said, "Let's talk at my house later." "Okay." Wei Hong nodded and agreed immediately. After the banquet, the two left the third princess's mansion calmly, and got on the carriage one after the other and left. Medicine Granny's house is in an inconspicuous courtyard in the south of the city. This courtyard was empty, with only some seemingly ordinary herbs planted, but if you look carefully, you will find that there are many high-quality poisonous herbs hidden here. Once someone steps into this place, they will easily be poisoned to death. Maybe this is just a temporary place for Medicine Granny to stay. Maybe there is nothing worth stealing in her house, and she doesn't care about bringing a stranger back at all. "Sit down." Medicine Granny trembled and lit the kerosene lamp. She fumbled and wanted to pour tea for Wei Hong. "No need to bother." Wei Hong raised his hand to stop her and said, "I'm sorry to bother you so late at night. If you have any good stuff, you can take it out and take a look. If it's suitable, I will naturally not be stingy with the price." Okay. Medicine Granny turned around and went to the backyard to get something. Soon, 7 or 8 potted flowers and plants, 3 brocade boxes, and a porcelain bottle were placed in front of them. Absolute winter grass, soul-stirring 7-leaf flower, 7 colored mantis eggs, thunder pattern black spider poison. Wei Hong was extremely surprised and checked every kind of poisonous grass and flower as if he had found a treasure. The plants planted in these pots are all top quality. Each plant can threaten the life of a strong person in the refining organ realm. Once matched, it can make the toxicity of the 10,000 poison palm increase dramatically. In addition, there are some poisonous insect eggs and poisonous tree fruits in the brocade box. As for the porcelain bottle, it contains 2 or 3 tails of venom from the thunder pattern black spider. Even those in the late refining organ realm have to avoid them. They are hard to find except in deep mountains and swamps, and a drop of venom is worth 1,000 gold. "I didn't expect that you have such a collection. It's amazing." Wei Hong couldn't help but sigh. Even if these venoms are not prepared, they are rare and good things. If they are put on the black market, they will be snapped up. "No." Medicine Granny shook her head and said, "The venom of the thunder pattern black spider is smelly and black. It is not easy to poison quietly without preparation. Ordinary people don't know how to prepare it, so it's rare to meet someone who knows it. I want all of them." Wei Hong pondered for a moment and made a direct offer. 30-year-old absolute winter grass is average in appearance, counted as 13,000 taels. 20-year-old soul-stirring 7-leaf flower is excellent in appearance, counted as 18,000 taels. The market price of 1 tael of thunder pattern black spider poison is 12,000. I'll give you 3 taels. After some calculations, the final total price was as high as 140,000 taels. If Wei Hong was not the same person as before, he would never dare to be so extravagant just to buy some poisonous grass for practice. 140,000 taels, what do you think, senior? Wei Hong asked back. Okay. Medicine Granny was obviously very satisfied with the price. She coughed and said, it's not easy to carry so many things. You can take them away in the carriage outside the door. Thank you. Wei Hong nodded and took out a thick stack of silver bills to pay. 140,000 taels is not a small amount even for a strong man in the refining organ realm, but it is not too much money for him now. After the payment and goods were settled, Wei Hong directly put the pots of poisonous grass on the carriage and prepared to take them home overnight. However, just as he was about to drive away, he saw a pattern drawn with charcoal under the wall of Medicine Granny's door. This pattern looked like a child's graffiti. No one would look at it more. But Wei Hong recognized it as a special mark of the 10,000 Poison sect at a glance. He had learned from Zhang Yuanke that all those with this mark were secret contact points of the 10,000 Poison sect. Hey! Wei Hong was stunned for a moment and couldn't help laughing. What a coincidence, Medicine Granny was actually a member of the 10,000 Poison sect. No wonder she had so many poisonous grasses in her hands. But why did she hide in the capital of gods under an assumed name? And why did she show up as a doctor to make money? At her age, it seems that making so much money is useless, right? Strange, it's really strange. Wei Hong couldn't help but wonder, at her age, her blood and ki have gradually declined, and there is no possibility of breaking through to the innate realm. Even if she wants to practice, she can refine the 5 internal organs pill. The secular gold and silver are of little use to her. But whether she is selling pills at the banquet or selling poisonous herbs here, she has shown a great desire for money. What's going on? These questions are obviously unreasonable. Unless, she works hard to make money just to work for the 10,000 Poison sect. In this way, everything can be explained. Although the 10,000 Poison sect has a single hand in southern Xinjiang, it is naturally not easy to support a bunch of disciples. The 10,000 Poisons refining poison is a thing that burns money. It is not uncommon to send people to collect money and act as spies. Interesting. Wei Hong smiled and drove away directly. Regardless of whether Medicine Granny is a member of the 10,000 Poison sect or what mission she has lurking in the capital of gods, he is not suitable to say more. However, considering the help Zhang Yuanke and the Wandu sect had given him, he would have to pay more attention to this place in the future. If Grand Miao had any trouble, he would feel bad if he didn't help her. The Jianghu is not about fighting and killing, it's about human relationships. Wei Hong's long sigh gradually disappeared at the corner of the street. Chapter 252 Baiyun Temple, Healing. The next day, Wei Hong took some time to go to Baiyun Temple outside the city. This Taoist temple is located in the deep mountains dozens of miles north of the city. On weekdays, there is no incense and few people. The walls of the Taoist temple are mottled and in disrepair, and it looks very desolate. Go up along the stone steps. A thin young Taoist priest was patiently sweeping the fallen leaves. He was too lazy to look up when he heard footsteps. Every move seemed to be practicing martial arts. Wei Hong glanced at him but did not disturb him. But just as they approached, the young Taoist priest spoke again leisurely. If the distinguished guest wants to burn incense, there is a Fat Ho temple 2 miles ahead. This temple does not accept ordinary pilgrims. Looking for someone? Is Taoist Master King Guiyang here? Wei Hong said lightly. I heard that he was looking for someone to heal his apprentice. I am good at some Kaihuan techniques, so I came to try. Oh. The young Taoist priest's face stagnated and he immediately stopped his action, turned around and said politely, Dear guest, please, the master is practicing martial arts in the back mountain, I will ask someone to call him back. The two of them stepped into the Taoist temple one after another. There were still a few Taoist priests busy inside, some sweeping the floor or practicing martial arts, and 2 people were drying medicinal materials. Obviously, they were all disciples of Taoist Master Qin Guiyang. The young Taoist priest raised his hand and called one person to ask him to go find someone. After a while, Taoist Master King Guyan came back with a sword upside down. His Taoist robe was full of grass debris, and there was a little sweat on his forehead. Obviously, he was practicing martial arts just now. Huh? Taoist King Guyan handed the sword to his disciple and could not help but bow his head and said, "Is this brother Zhang Fei from the banquet last night?" "Yes, I've met Taoist King Guyan." Wei Hong smiled and admitted it. Most warriors have photographic memories. Although the two had never exchanged a word, they would not mistake each other after meeting each other. "I heard that the Taoist has been looking for someone to treat my disciple." Wei Hong said straight to the point, "I am a little confident in my medical skills, but I just broke through to the refining organs realm and have no foundation. I would like to learn some skills." "Thank you, please." Taoist King Guyan's face flashed a trace of gratitude. He may have been looking forward to and disappointed countless times, so he was so heavy that he didn't know what to say, but just silently led the person to the backyard. A pale-faced young man was meditating under the plum tree in the backyard. Seeing everyone coming in, he hurriedly struggled to get up. Taoist King Guyan took a few quick steps to hold him down, and said softly, "Young King, don't get up. This Zhang Wushi claims to be able to cure your old illness, so he came to see you." "Okay." Taoist Young King smiled weakly. He didn't say anything more, but just silently stretched out his wrist, as if he had already given up any hope for his condition. Obviously, many medical masters have come to see him in the past. Even the third princess had already found the imperial physician in order to win over Taoist King Guyan, so Wei Hong's pulse-taking did not arouse anyone's expectations. Everyone just quietly waited for another disappointment. Cold evil entered the body. Wei Hong murmured with a strange look on his face. He saw something wrong as soon as he took the other party's pulse. This little Taoist named Young King must have been fighting with others, and his meridians were severely injured. At the same time, he fell into the cold pond and soaked in the pond for a long time. So now the cold evil has entered his body. Although his meridians have been successfully repaired by the secret medicine. However, there is often cold evil flowing through his bone marrow, which damages his meridians and eventually leads to deficiency of qi and blood. His martial arts cultivation has not improved at all. Master Zhang can actually see that it is the cold evil that has entered his body. Taoist King Guyan's eyes lit up, and he said excitedly, "In the past, we have invited at least 80 doctors, most of whom can't even see the cause of the disease, and less than 5 of them can see the cold evil. Do you have a way to remove it? The injury to his meridians is not difficult to cure. Just some soup medicine and practice some healing internal skills, and he will recover in less than 3 to 5 months." Wei Hong frowned and said, "But it is very difficult to expel the cold evil in the body. It is difficult for ordinary medicine to penetrate into the bone marrow. Excessive use of medicine can easily cause greater damage to the already fragile meridians." Yes. That's what the old Dr. Zhang Zunfang said. "Do you have a way?" Taoist King Guyan asked with hope on his face, but when he saw Wei Hong's solemn expression, his face became disappointed inch by inch. "It's okay, Master." Taoist Yansong coughed and comforted him, "This is how my life will be. Don't worry about me anymore." "Master Zhang Wu, thank you for your help." Taoist King Guyan sighed bitterly and comforted him, "My disciple's injury is still fatal. Let's go to the tea house for tea first. There's no rush to drink tea." Wei Hong frowned and shook his head, saying, "Your disciple's injury is really tricky. Even I can only think of 3 ways to treat it. Don't worry. Let me think about it. Maybe there are other ways." "How many?" "3. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. Taoist King Guyan was also stunned, and looked at him as if he was looking at a liar. Wei Hong smiled and didn't explain too much. With his medical skills, there is indeed a way to cure this kind of injury, but the 3 methods are very harsh, and it is not easy for other doctors to try. Let me help you get rid of the cold evil in your body first." Wei Hong was too lazy to say any more nonsense. His left and right hands turned into after images and passed through his clothes. The next moment, 13 black iron plum blossom needles suddenly popped out. These long needles directly penetrated into the acupuncture points all over the body of the young Taoist Yunsong. Then Wei Hong raised his hand, grabbed and lifted, and turned his body around. Then his palms turned into after images and slapped him crazily. Each palm seemed to have the power to destroy the world, but it turned into a soft and clever force that merged into the body. This. Everyone was shocked and subconsciously wanted to stop it. Taoist King Yang stopped everyone with surprise, and couldn't help but murmured, "What a powerful palm method, what a clever internal force. Master, such a method of healing is simply unheard of. Why is it so?" Yes, he is not messing around, right? What if something happens to the little junior brother? Everyone persuaded him. Taoist King Yang was also very confused. How many doctors couldn't cure the disease? Could this person come to messing around? Oh no, I haven't figured out his background yet and I rashly asked him to treat me. What should I do? What if he makes a mistake in controlling his internal force? Yun Song will die. Taoist King Yang became more and more panicked as he thought about it. Now he was in a dilemma. He was worried about accidents and worried that stopping him would delay rescue. For a while, he felt that he was in a dilemma and had a headache. But gradually, everyone was attracted by Wei Hong's actions again. He slapped the little Taoist Yun Song all over his body with precision, and his internal force continued to flow into his body like a surging river. Everything was natural and like art, which completely stunned everyone. Chapter 253, The Method of Cultivating Immortality, the 5 Elements Kigen Technique. Wei Hong practiced the Zhengjin refining organs technique, and his internal energy was known for its domineering and sharpness. However, he had already practiced the cloud-turning sea palm to the extreme, and his palm technique had already reached the state of turning hardness into softness in his internal energy. He easily injected his internal energy into the body of the young Taoist Yun Song, and directly penetrated into his bone marrow. Such a method is absolutely rare in the refining organ realm. However, even if someone can do the same operation as him, they don't know how to force out the cold evil spirit. Only he, who is proficient in medical skills, knows how to do it. Bang bang bang. Puff puff puff. Wei Hong raised his hands and slapped them continuously. At this time, everyone realized that all the places on the body of the young Taoist Yun Song who were pierced by the black iron plum blossom needles were gradually forced out drops of black blood. They were smelly and cold, dripping onto the ground along the plum blossom needles, and immediately bursts of white smoke rose up, scaring everyone to step back a few steps. Is this the cold evil? Oh my god. Everyone took a breath of cold air. Taoist King Yang was surprised and happy. He knew the situation of his disciples best. This kind of cold evil was as difficult to expel as a maggot on the tarsal bone. Unless he found a strong man who was good at both internal force control and medical skills, there would be a glimmer of hope to expel it. He had been running around for many years and had already given up hope. Who would have thought that there was a ray of hope after all the difficulties? This god who came out of nowhere actually gave him a glimmer of hope for recovery. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but burst into tears. After a slap, the little Taoist priest Yun Song couldn't help but hum in a daze, and a burst of hot sweat all over his body, as if he had just come out of a steamer, and a lot of impurities were discharged through the pores. In the end, the plum blossom needle no longer discharged smelly black blood. Wei Hong was satisfied with the end of the exercise and pulled out the needle. He turned around and said indifferently, "Pen, ink, paper and inkstone." Okay. The little Taoist priests on the side hurried to get the pen, ink, paper and inkstone. When everything was ready, Wei Hong immediately wrote 2 prescriptions. Your disciple has been suffering from a chronic disease for many years. It is not easy to cure it. Wei Hong handed the prescription to Taoist King Yang and said, both prescriptions contain some common medicinal materials. One is a medicinal bath once a day to wash away the remaining coldness, and the other is a warm tonic to restore the deficiency. It will be restored to its original state in 3 months. During this period, do not fight with others. Thank you. Taoist King Yang was excited and incoherent. He was also a person who understood medical skills, so he naturally understood the subtleties of the 2 prescriptions. After taking the pulse of Taoist Yun Song, he was even more certain that Wei Hong's treatment method was effective. Just follow the prescription for 3 months. His poor disciple's old illness will be completely cured. Okay. Taoist King Yang said excitedly, thank you for your help. You are the great benefactor of our Bayun temple. I am grateful. Come on, let's go to the tea house to drink tea first. Today we must thank our benefactor. No need to do that. Wei Hong glanced at the happy faces of the crowd and said indifferently and distantly, I only come for the real skills of Bayun temple. I will get rewards for saving people. We are even. Okay. Taoist King Yang also saw that the other party did not want to make close friends. He quickly gave up the idea of making friends and led the man directly to a slightly intact house in the backyard. Although Baiyun Temple is poor, there are really many real skills and martial arts that have been passed down and collected from generation to generation. Taoist King Yang pushed open the door and immediately revealed rows of bookshelves. Although there is no sutra pavilion of a serious and powerful family here, but the skills from the skin refining realm to the internal organs refining realm are still very complete. The masters of Baiyun Temple in all generations were masters of the refining Zhang realm. The books they collected and accumulated were stored here, which was a considerable fortune. Thank you for your help this time to help me resolve my worries. Taoist King Yang said sincerely, you can take away 3 books of true skills or martial arts, which is also my sincerity. No need, 1 book is 1 book. Wei Hong raised his foot and prepared to enter the door. Taoist King Yang sighed with emotion. You are a principled person, but aren't you afraid that I won't keep my word? What are you afraid of? If you keep your word, I can get a book of true skills. If you don't keep your word, all the books in Baiyun Temple will belong to me. It's not a loss at all. Wei Hong said lightly. Taoist King Yang was so scared that his back went cold when he heard this. He was also a master of the late stage of the refining Zhang realm, but the other party didn't take him seriously at all. If he really didn't keep his word, I'm afraid that the entire Baiyun Temple would be slaughtered, right? There is a secret compartment on the inside of the last row of bookshelves. Taoist King Yang said hurriedly, you can take a look, maybe there's something you like. After that, he turned and left. Let Wei Hong look around in the study room at will. You are quite smart. Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction and went straight to the last row of bookshelves. What kind of books had he not seen in the Sutra Pavilion of Prince Duan's mansion in the past? Therefore, he was too lazy to even flip through ordinary books. Only martial arts and secret techniques and the refining Zhang realm could attract his attention. Of course, Wei Hong was not a greedy person. Taoist King Yang clearly let him take whatever he wanted, but he was only going to take 1 book, just hoping that Baiyun Temple would not let him down. There were more than 30 books in the last row of bookshelves. Among them, there were 7 or 8 books on the experience of practicing in the refining Zhang realm, nearly 10 books on the skills, and the rest were all various sword techniques, boxing techniques, and leg techniques. Unfortunately, there was no secret technique. The life-threatening secret techniques and the refining Zhang realm were rare. Baiyun Temple might not have them, or it might have hidden them. In short, it is definitely impossible to put them here randomly for him to choose at will. Although Wei Hong was a little disappointed, he did not say much, but began to look for the secret compartment mentioned by Taoist King Yang. After a while, he found a hollow place on the side of the bookshelf. He opened it and found 3 books in the secret compartment. White Cloud Sutra, Cloud Crane 7 Clever Steps, 5 Elements Key Training Secrets. Wei Hong picked up the booklet with doubts and took a look, and couldn't help but take a breath. White Cloud Sutra was actually compiled by the masters of the Baiyun Temple for generations, and it was a collection of martial arts in the temple. This is a true skill that can be practiced from the skin refining realm to the internal organs refining realm. It can be regarded as a heritage of Baiyun Temple. Cloud Crane 7 Clever Steps is a footwork that is no less than take the sky 8-foot step. It is a level higher than other martial arts on the bookshelf. No wonder it is placed here with great care. Of course, they are nothing special. Wei Hong already has take the sky 8-foot step, and he doesn't like this footwork at all. At the same time, he has no interest in the White Cloud Sutra. The only thing that really made him unable to walk was the 5 Elements Key Training Technique, because it was actually the legendary Immortal Cultivation technique. If you want to know why Wei Hong dared to confirm it so confidently, it was because the system had already popped up a prompt sound, Ling. Detected the yellow level lower grade key training technique 5 Elements Key Training Technique. The next moment, there was a new Immortal Cultivation technique sub-item on the system panel. The 5 Elements Key Training Technique was listed on it, and the proficiency level became entry level 1/100000. Chapter 254 Aura, Practice. Am I dreaming? The legendary Immortal Cultivation technique was held in his hands so easily. Wei Hong's face was full of surprise and confusion, which eventually turned into disappointment. In the past 800 years, the Great Zhou dynasty has passed down countless immortal traces and immortal fates. It is not surprising that someone accidentally obtained immortal fate in Bayun Temple for 1 or 200 years. But it is obvious. This 5 elements key training secret is just the most rubbish and the most common stuff in the world of immortal cultivation, otherwise it would not have only been rated as a yellow level inferior grade. Even if Bayun Temple obtained this immortal method, no one has successfully cultivated it, which shows that it is not so easy to become an immortal cultivator. Let's take it. Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction. Although this technique is very poor, it is a treasure in the mortal world. And if he can become an immortal cultivator with it, wouldn't he be able to open the storage bag obtained in Kayandao Lake? Thinking of this, Wei Hong's eyes were full of expectations. He wanted to try his luck in this trip to Bayun Temple to see if he could get a secret technique to enrich his foundation. Who would have thought that he didn't find the secret technique, but found a method of cultivating immortality? Fate is really wonderful. He walked out of the study with satisfaction, and just a few steps away, he ran into Taoist King Yang, who was hurrying to boil medicine. He was also surprised to see Wei Hong come out so quickly. Did Master Zhang Wu gain anything? Taoist King Yang asked. Of course. Wei Hong pointed to his head, indicating that he had memorized the classics and was not going to take it away. Taoist King Yang was stunned for a long time, and finally smiled bitterly. Master Zhang Wu, there is no need to do this. If you like it, you can take it away. No need. Wei Hong said indifferently, it is a blessing to have a chance to be immortal, why take it away? You really chose the 5 elements key training secret. Taoist King Yang sighed and said, it's a pity that the spiritual energy in our mortal world is thin and almost non-existent. Over the years, there have been many arrogant people in my Bayun Temple, but unfortunately they can't complete the intake of ki. Oh. Wei Hong became interested after hearing this. After a conversation, more information was extracted from Taoist King Yang. This was found by the 3rd-generation master of Bayun Temple in a cave on a cliff. At that time, there was a corpse in the cave. The skills were recorded on a piece of animal skin. This one was copied later. Because they couldn't understand the words on it, the masters of Bayun Temple could only practice by half-guessing and half-guessing while flipping through ancient books and translating them. The result was naturally nothing. Neither did they go astray nor did they succeed in practicing. Later, Taoist King Yang's master learned from a royal prince that there were a lot of royal families who practiced immortality, and they also understood the text of immortality, but no one could practice successfully. The reason was that the spiritual energy in the mortal world was too thin, and it was not enough to absorb the energy into the body. Spiritual energy is the essence of heaven and earth. Taoist King Yang said with emotion, it is different from the blood and internal energy that we warriors practice. Every strand of it has great power, and only some deep mountains and swamps have sporadic existence. Inexplicable. Wei Hong suddenly thought of the dots of spiritual light on Kayandao Lake. Could they be the legendary spiritual energy? Unfortunately, the spiritual light has disappeared since the destruction of the immortal mansion. Even if he wants to verify it, he has no channels. However, if he encounters it again in the future, he can try to absorb 1 or 2. After all, he now has the skills of cultivating immortals. It is rumored that there are immortal cultivators in the royal family who serve as worshippers, and the current national teacher is one of the best. Wei Hong murmured, how do they practice? They are not from the Great Zhou. Taoist King Yang smiled bitterly and said, it is said that they came from a place called Dai Dynasty. I don't know where it is exactly. I only know that if people here want to cultivate immortals, they must leave the Great Zhou. No wonder. Wei Hong was not surprised at all. After all, in many immortal stories that have been circulated throughout the world, it is often the Great Zhou warriors who travel thousands of miles to seek immortals and finally embark on the road of cultivating immortals. However, he is only in the refining Zhang realm now, so he is not in a hurry to find the immortal road. After all, he still has a big family that has not been settled, and he has not really reached the point where there is no progress. This matter is over, goodbye. Seeing that he could not get any useful information, Wei Hong said goodbye and left. Returning to Wei Mansion at night, Wei Hong sat on the golden silk cushion in the training room, silently opened his spiritual pupils and scanned the surroundings. He really found that there were a few more dust-like faint spiritual lights in the air. These spiritual lights were very, very weak, and even if he opened his spiritual pupils to observe, he could not see them clearly. He could only vaguely see that they were constantly attracted by the golden silk cushions, and the number was pitiful. These are probably the legendary spiritual energy, right? I didn't expect that there are also some in the secular air, but they are very thin. Maybe it will be thicker in the deep mountains and swamps without the pollution of the mortal world. Let's try the 5 elements key training art first. Wei Hong did not hesitate and directly added 100,000 vitality points to this key training art, and it jumped directly from entry to mastery. At the same time, there were also countless knowledge in his mind that he didn't understand. They are mysterious and profound. If Wei Hong were to practice by himself, he would not understand the deep meaning for a long time. However, after adding points, his understanding seemed to increase 1,000 times, and he understood its essence at once. There is an essential difference between the cultivation of immortals and the martial arts. Unlike martial arts, they do not need to draw energy from ki, blood, and elixirs. Instead, they absorb external spiritual energy to feed the body, so that the whole body can be nourished by spiritual energy to achieve the point of becoming stronger. Immortal cultivators do not need to exercise their bodies at all. After their bodies have been washed by spiritual energy for a long time, they will naturally become immune to all diseases, poisons, water and fire, and swords and guns. They can even become unafraid of eating grains, living on air, and flying in the sky and hiding in the ground. This is the real fascinating cultivation of immortals. It's not like a warrior is still running around on the ground. The difference between the two is so great that it is no wonder that the dream of the top warriors of the Great Zhou is to step out of here and find a way to embark on the road of cultivation. It would be difficult for Wei Hong to resist this temptation. After some contemplation, he gradually gained a preliminary understanding of the 5 elements key training Ju. Although he was not as good as a real immortal cultivator, he was still much better than the beginners in the immortal cultivation world. At least if you had sufficient spiritual energy, it would not be difficult for him to complete the first step of absorbing the energy into the body. Try it. Wei Hong took a deep breath. He made a posture of 5 hearts facing the origin. He silently visualized the 5 elements' divine intention in his heart. A mysterious breath gradually affected the surroundings from his consciousness, and inexplicably generated a strong suction force, sucking several spiritual lights around him into his body. Chapter 255. The poison skill is perfected and an unexpected discovery is made. Having lived 2 lives and practiced martial arts for many years, Wei Hong's soul was naturally much stronger than that of ordinary people, so that he easily completed the first step of cultivating immortals, visualization. After the cultivator visualized the divine intention of the technique, he would unconsciously absorb the spiritual energy around him, and then gather them together to circulate in the body's meridians, and then merge them into the danshan to condense into spiritual power, so that he could completely use this essence of heaven and earth for his own use. Wei Hong already understood the principle of cultivating immortals. But the practice made him almost depressed and wanted to vomit blood. The few spiritual lights in the air around him were indeed spiritual energy, but they were too rare. A few dust-like particles entered the body, and Wei Hong had not had time to introduce them into the meridians before they were automatically absorbed by the body. Hiss. He secretly took a breath of cool air. It felt that the place where the spiritual energy was absorbed was like being soaked in a hot spring. The blood, flesh and bone cells in the body were scrambling to absorb it crazily, and constantly became stronger because of it. The nourishment of spiritual energy is very similar to vitality. It's just that vitality can only repair, while it can make the body stronger. Wei Hong's body is like a dry desert. Every particle of spiritual energy that enters the body will be easily swallowed up. It can't enter the meridians at all, and it can't flow from the meridians to the danshan. When there are no more spiritual energy particles around, even if Wei Hong visualizes 10 or 100 times, he can't absorb a little spiritual energy. Everything seems to be in vain. No wonder there are few immortals in the secular world. It's too thin. Wei Hong shook his head and sighed helplessly. He even suspected that a few spiritual energy particles were absorbed by the golden silk futon. Otherwise, he might not find a single spiritual energy in the entire Wei mansion. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but secretly regret it. How much spiritual energy was scattered in the world in Kyandao Lake. If he could take the opportunity to practice, he might not have the opportunity to embark on the path of practice, right? What a pity. Wei Hong sighed helplessly. Everything is determined by fate. It is really beyond human control. Now he has obtained the storage bag of Kyandao Lake Immortal Mansion. He also obtained the 5 elements key training secret treasured by Baiyun Temple. As long as he finds a place full of spiritual energy, He can become a true immortal cultivator, but it's a pity that everything is just a luxury after all. I can find more classics and look for caves and blessed places in the future to see where there is spiritual energy. However, there must be many warriors facing this difficulty. If there is really a place where spiritual energy gathers, I am afraid it will not be my turn. Let's practice martial arts first and become stronger, and then slowly plan. Wei Hong shook his head and gave up practicing. He found the poisonous grass he bought from the medicine woman and began to prepare and boil the poison. Soon a pile of bottles and jars were placed in front of him. With his current attainments in poison, he has already reached the point where he can prepare poisons at will. He does not need any poison formula at all. He can pick up various herbs and mix them into various deadly poisons. Even these poisons don't have names, most of them are just the first time Wei Hong mixed them. But it doesn't matter, as long as they work. 10,000 poison palms. Wei Hong roared and shook his left hand violently. His originally fair palm immediately turned as black as ink, emitting thick black gas, and the entire training room became filled with poisonous fog. If there were people around at this moment, they would be poisoned to death in an instant. If the blood from his palm accidentally dripped into the well, it would be enough to kill everyone in the county, and this was exactly the trump card he prepared for himself. Goo 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 goo. He raised his head and drank the poison in the bottles and jars. These poisons are enough to kill most of the refining internal organs. Even if such a large dose is swallowed by a strong person in the innate realm, I am afraid that he will be poisoned to death. Even if Wei Hong has a poison-resistant constitution and has practiced poison skills. At this moment, he was poisoned to the point of being as black as ink, and his internal organs were throbbing with pain, as if he would be poisoned to death in the next moment. Hoo. Wei Hong breathed in and out in big gulps. Every breath seemed to spew out a thick poisonous mist, so that every breath of air in the training room was poisonous. However, as he madly practiced a 10,000 poison palm, these toxins began to gather in his left hand, and the poisonous mist in the air was constantly inhaled into his body, and forced towards the palm of his left hand little by little. Gradually, Wei Hong's left hand turned from black to red, and then from red to colorful, and finally gradually returned to normal skin color. So far, the 10,000 poison palm has been perfected. Although it may not threaten the Xiantian realm, anyone who fights against him in the Lianzhang realm will have a headache, even if they are at the peak of the Lianzhang realm, and they will die instantly if they are not careful. Now he calls himself the Poison King, which is indeed true. In the second half of the night, Wei Hong took a short rest and went out to work again under the moonlight. Although he already had a fortune, he was unwilling to give up the vitality of slaughtering more than 1,000 pigs and sheep every day. After all, no matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat. The benefits are not small in the long run. Now Wei Hong is practicing immortal arts beyond his level, and the vitality he needs is simply too much. If he wants to max out the 5 elements Kigen, he needs at least 4.8 million vitality points. How dare he relax for a moment? The Wei mansion is very close to Wei Ji's meat shop, and it is only 400 or 500 feet away on foot. But tonight, Wei Hong found something wrong when he walked onto the street. It was because he subconsciously opened his spiritual pupils in order to find spiritual energy. He wanted to take advantage of the night when no one was around to see where the spiritual energy gathered in the capital of the gods. At a glance, he saw all kinds of lights surrounding the sky above the imperial city. These lights are difficult to see with the naked eye. Only people like him who have spiritual pupils can see them. Even immortal practitioners have to use the Kigen to see clearly. Since no one taught him, Wei Hong didn't quite understand what these lights represent. However, from a distance, he saw some particles of light that were suspected to be spiritual energy. In addition, there was a group of purple air rising into the sky, which should be the legendary dynasty's luck. The rest of the lights of various colors surrounded it, which was extremely dazzling. However, there was also an exaggerated layer of gray air covering the sky above the capital of gods. They were entangled in every house and household, as if affecting the luck of the people, and as if suppressing the luck of the dynasty. What is this? Wei Hong was shocked and puzzled. He had already cultivated his spiritual pupils and had observed the surroundings of the capital of gods on weekdays. But I don't know if it was because of the improvement of strength or other reasons. Everything he saw today was something he had never seen before. For some reason, he felt that there was something wrong with these gray air masses. It was not until he walked to Wei's meat shop and saw that the butchers who were about to start working also had more or less gray threads emanating from their bodies, and they were faintly connected to the gray air masses in the sky, that Wei Hong was scared and broke out in a cold sweat on his back. Damn, what the hell are these? Wei Hong murmured. Chapter 256, Maintain troops for 1,000 days and use them for a moment. Boss, are you okay? Are we going to work now, boss? Inside the butcher shop, everyone saw Wei Hong in a daze and couldn't help but urge him. Li Daniel walked closer and asked in a low voice, Brother Wei, what are you doing? Aren't you going to kill pigs today? No hurry. Wei Hong glanced at everyone again. Everyone felt like they were being stared at by a tiger, and they were a little scared, but they still stood there and dared not move, letting him look at them. After a while, Wei Hong saw the clue. Among the dozens of butchers in the butcher shop, not everyone was contaminated with gray air. Those with strong blood and qi had no gray air at all, while some who had just started practicing martial arts and were weak were more or less contaminated. Cough cough. Cough cough. At this time, the old man who was burning the fire in the kitchen coughed lightly a few times. Wei Hong's eyes shifted to him again. This man was about 60 years old, with a hunchback, an old and decadent body, and the gray gas on his body was the most concentrated. Uncle Li, how are you doing recently? Wei Hong walked over. Reply to the boss, ahem. The old man said humbly and flatteringly, I'm in good health, I just caught a little cold recently, it's nothing. Really? Wei Hong grabbed his left hand and took his pulse. After a while, he frowned and walked towards the others, taking their pulses one by one. Boss, what's wrong with you? Ha, are we poisoned? What nonsense, boss has a deep meaning for doing this. Everyone joked. Wei Hong's brows were still furrowed. He found that anyone who was surrounded by gray gas must have a pulse of external evil dampness and heat, which is often caused by cold or infection of epidemic diseases. It's just the beginning of midsummer. It was so hot in the summer, how could so many people catch a cold? Could it be? Hiss. Wei Hong couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Could it be that a large-scale plague is going to break out in the capital of the gods? No, how could a plague break out in the capital of a country? There are people here to clean up the feces and urine every day, and there are people who specially transport the dead beggars on the streets to burn them. It is not easy for the plague to break out. Looking back at the 800 years of the Great Zhou dynasty, although plague disasters have emerged endlessly in various places. However, the number of times the plague broke out in the capital of the gods is also very few, probably only more than 10 times, and sometimes there may not be one every 100 years. Besides, is this really a plague? Wei Hong couldn't help but feel puzzled by his discovery. In his heart, he inexplicably thought of the situation he found in the village outside the city when he returned from March, when he had just completed the task of clearing evil spirits in the Hengxi division. At that time, the three immortals were holding a ritual in the village. When the villagers bowed and worshipped, there was also gray air emanating from their bodies. Thinking of this, Wei Hong felt his scalp tingling. He seemed to have discovered something extraordinary by accident. If his guess was correct, what on earth did the three immortals want to do in the capital of the gods? This was the capital of a dynasty. Did they want to kill millions of people? Impossible. What good would it be for them to kill so many people? Wei Hong was uneasy and was entangled for a while. Only after Li Dani reminded him again did he announce the start of the pig slaughter. This matter was a bit mysterious, and he couldn't figure out what it was for a while, so it was better not to alarm the snake for the time being. In fact, even if he had a shocking secret, Wei Hong was not going to do anything. The three immortals were not easy to mess with, and he was not powerful enough to save the world. At most, he just took precautions early and arranged a retreat for his relatives. After a busy period, the sky was bright. Wei Hong had some free time to release a little bird to deliver a letter. After a while, he saw Lu and Zioki again at a small stall on the side of North Street. The two occupied a small table. In the morning, there were 2 or 3 people sitting on the stall. Both of them had disguised themselves to be inconspicuous, so they did not attract anyone's attention. Boss, 2 large bowls of waffle soup, with meat, and 10 pancakes. Okay, wait a moment. Wei Hong skillfully ordered the order while pouring himself a cup of low-quality tea and drinking it with relish. Lu and Zioki chuckled and said, "How do you have time to call me to have breakfast together? Is there something wrong?" "Nothing, just looking for you to catch up." After the fragrant big bowl of awful soup was served, Wei Hong answered casually on the surface, drinking soup and eating pancakes in big mouthfuls, but he used his internal force to transmit his voice. Recently, there seems to be something wrong with the Three Immortals sect. Let your people check what's going on. Oh. Luan Zioki was immediately interested when he heard it. The more than 200 people in Yan'anyu Tower had been training for so long, and he had been holding his breath to prepare for a big fight, but unfortunately he had never had the opportunity to use them. Now that he knows he has a chance to show his talents, how can he not be excited? Unfortunately, he has not yet reached the state of refining organs and cannot use internal force to transmit sound. He is also worried that his words will attract the attention of the people at the next table, so he can only keep signaling him to continue with his eyes. Recently, many people in the city have pulses of external evil dampness and heat, which is a sign before the outbreak of the plague. Wei Hong continued to transmit sound with internal force and said, I suspect this matter is related to the Three Immortals sect, so you need to find out. First, see if there are many more patients with cold, heat and cough in the clinic recently. Second, check the past deeds of the Three Immortals sect in Jiangnan to see if there are any cases of preaching during the epidemic, and what their intentions are. Third, prepare a retreat. In case of any situation in the city, we must be able to evacuate people immediately. After all, a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Luan Zioki nodded silently to show that he understood. He bit the biscuit fiercely, and then muttered, recently, the medicinal materials on the market are not expensive. Do you want to stock up? No need. Wei Hong shook his head and said, my wife has some connections, I will ask her to prepare it. Okay. The two chatted about some family matters again, but did not mention the Three Immortals sect. Nowadays, the Three Immortals sect has long been developed and expanded in the capital of the gods. Not only have there been dozens of halls, but there are also continuous rituals every day, and more people have begun to believe in them. In such a panic, any old man or old woman on the street is likely to be a believer of the Three Immortals sect. Once such a thing is announced, it will definitely attract the attention of the other party. How dare the two be so careless? As for letting Yan'anyu Tower investigate this matter, it was also a plan made by Wei Hong after careful consideration. Now the boys and girls in Yan'anyu Tower have been training for more than half a year. Many of them have the strength of the perfect peak of the skin refining realm, and even a group of top-level talents have entered the blood refining realm. Although they still lack experience and are not thorough enough. But who doesn't gain experience slowly? It takes 1,000 days to raise soldiers and only a moment to deploy them. Wei Hong has raised them for such a long time, it is naturally time for them to work hard and run errands. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257 Plague, Big Reshuffle. It has been more than half a year since the establishment of Yan'anyu Tower. After long-term training and brainwashing, the orphans have not only long lost the cowardice and weakness that teenagers should have, but have transformed into wolf cubs. They are loyal, courageous, and ruthless. At Wei Hong's command, more than 200 boys and girls, led by Luan Zioki and others, immediately spread into the market and began to observe the enemy situation, using all their means to collect various intelligence. Gradually, a large amount of intelligence came from everywhere like snowflakes. Wei Hong sat in an inconspicuous courtyard on South Street. Various birds kept sending intelligence. Luan Zioki skillfully translated the secret language and recorded it, and then presented it to him. You kid, you actually came up with a set of secret language. Wei Hong chuckled and joked. Of course. Luan Zioki muttered as he picked up a pen to write, if you want to collect intelligence, you can't be a rough man. Do you know how much I have suffered to teach these wolf cubs to learn to read? At night, I invited scholars to come to my house to teach me to read, and I took time to teach them during the day. Now everyone in Yan'anyu Tower can read. In addition, this set of secret words is also figured out by ourselves. There are 3 sets of secret words in total. Each symbol represents a meaning. Today, the 3rd set of secret words is used. No one except us knows what it means. Wei Hong nodded secretly when he heard this. Luan Zioki really put his heart into it. It was the right choice to hand over Yan'anyu Tower to him. From the intelligence collected from various places, the number of patients in Chengdu has indeed increased in the past half-month. The major medical clinics have long been crowded with patients suffering from fever, cough and cold. Every medical clinic is full of coughing patients, which is shocking. Secondly, from the situation investigated, it was found. When the Three Immortals sect preached in Jiangnan, there were indeed many outbreaks of plague, which caused many deaths and injuries in various states. However, every time the Three Immortals sect would distribute talisman water to treat the victims, the number of their believers increased dramatically, and they developed to an astonishing scale in just a few decades. The current situation in Chengdu is almost exactly the same as what happened in Jiangnan. Luan Zhaoqi frowned and said, "The prices of medicinal materials on the market are all rising. It seems that someone has smelled something wrong. Chengdu is full of hidden dragons and crouching tigers, and there are naturally many smart people." Wei Hong thought for a while and said, "If it is just a man-made plague, it's okay. I have my own way to protect my people. I'm just afraid that this matter is not that simple. Why don't we move all our relatives away?" Luan Zhaoqi suggested, "There is a good farm near Yan'an Villa that we can buy. If something happens, we will be outside the city and will not be too passive." "No." Wei Hong refused decisively without thinking. "The situation has not deteriorated to the point where it is out of control. My family is used to living in Chengdu. It is not appropriate to ask them to move suddenly, and it is too much of a fuss. Then prepare a retreat." Luan Zhaoqi suggested, "Buy the farm as usual as a foothold, buy a small courtyard in the city, dig a tunnel leading to the mountains outside the city, and evacuate in time if something happens." Wei Hong was very satisfied with this proposal. Preparing a retreat route in advance can save the trouble of mobilizing troops and allow for free advance and retreat. Even if it is not used this time, it can be used in the future. It is indeed a wise move. However, these preparations are far from enough. He must ask the King Chamber of Commerce to prepare a large amount of medicinal materials and food. There will be countless casualties under the plague. By then, the entire Chengdu will be in chaos. In short, it will definitely be more cruel than the last battle for the throne. Buy all the houses around the Wei mansion, move your brothers and sisters here, and transfer a group of strong players from the Yan'an Tower to protect you. If there is a big mess, protect the safety of the Wei mansion at all costs. In addition, the King Chamber of Commerce will also arrange people to keep an eye on it, so that there will be no chaos. Dig a few more tunnels in the city. It is always right to have 3 burrows for a cunning rabbit." Wei Hong patiently instructed. Luan Zhaoqi nodded repeatedly to indicate that he had taken note of it. "It's just digging tunnels, not difficult. Which warrior is not an inhuman being with infinite strength and full of energy? Just send a few people to survey the terrain. As long as they are careful and dig deeper, they won't alarm anyone. As for protecting the Wei mansion and the King Chamber of Commerce, it is natural. Isn't it for Wei Hong to use them at the critical moment? Go and get busy. Everything is confidential for the time being." Wei Hong waved his hand and said, "Don't cause too much panic." "Okay." Luan Zhaoqi nodded and turned to leave. Wei Hong stared at the information on the table for a while, and finally spit out more breath of turbid air helplessly. "This damn world, how can civilians live so hard? It's hard to be stable for a few days, and then there is trouble again. I don't know how many people will die this time. This is the capital of the gods. Even the capital of the Great Zhou Kingdom is so dangerous. The people in other states don't know how miserable they are. Fortunately, I have the strength to protect my family. I will never be scared by a little wind and waves. Otherwise, I dare not stay in the capital of the gods now. I am afraid I have fled here in fear." Wei Hong sighed secretly. At the same time, he also carefully thought about the details. With sufficient and complete preparations, as long as there is no force majeure disaster, he is still confident that he can protect the safety of his family. As for other people, they are not under his protection. Wei Hong's heart has long been trained to be extremely cold and hard. He will never get involved in the karma of others at will. He even only thinks about what kind of benefits he can get from it. A major turmoil represents a reshuffle. If civilians want to rise quickly, they must seize the opportunity to gain enough benefits and growth in the reshuffle to break through the class cage created by the powerful. The last battle for the throne was a reshuffle. Wei Hong seized the opportunity to take advantage of the chaos to pretend to be a lieutenant of the patrol camp. He chopped off thousands of heads openly and earned more than 1 million vitality points plus more than 10 secret books, laying a solid foundation for his own path of practice. And can he gain benefits from it this time? Frowning and thinking for a long time, Wei Hong picked up the pen and wrote 4 words on the paper: Ghost Child, Imperial Palace. There were many casualties in the disaster, and all kinds of resentful ghosts, evil spirits, resentment, and yin energy must have skyrocketed. Wei Hong has his own means to use them and cultivate the ghost boy to be more powerful. This is a big advantage. In addition, with Wei Hong's current strength, ordinary resources are no longer in his eyes. Only some very rare resources are worth his hard work, such as the spiritual energy in the palace. Although I don't know what the spiritual energy of the palace is related to. But if possible, he still wants to get in touch with it. Chapter 258 Looting. The whole city is in panic. Within half a month, the situation developed as Wei Hong expected. The capital of the gods began to show signs of an outbreak of plague. Many coughing patients appeared in the streets and alleys. No matter where you go, you can hear the sound of coughing. At first, many people thought it was just a cold. But as the major clinics were overcrowded with patients, and even some people on the street collapsed while walking, and many people began to cough and vomit blood, the news of the plague began to spread. For a time, the whole city was in a panic. When many powerful and wealthy businessmen were eager to escape to the manor outside the city for refuge, they were shocked to find that the patrol camp had received an order to block the entire city. Only entry was allowed at the major city gates, and even the carriages of the powerful were stopped. What's going on? Do you know who I am? Why are you soldiers stopping me? Fuck, there is an outbreak of plague in the city. Do you want us all to die here? Get out of the way, get out of the way now. Conflicts quickly broke out at the city gates. Many bigwigs in luxurious clothes looked anxious and furious, and wanted to rush out with their men, but the patrol camp did not move, and refused to give way no matter how the other party threatened or lured them. Now even the dumbest people could see that something was wrong. Various panic emotions spread among the crowd, and a looting on a larger scale than the struggle for the throne began to break out on the streets. The people gathered in butcher shops, rice shops, grain and oil shops, grocery shops, and drug stores with terrified faces, and began to loot all the supplies they could buy. The price of rice and other commodities rose 9 times in a day. Many businesses were either sold out or chose to hoard them. All kinds of rumors were flying around, and everyone seemed to be in panic. The 3rd floor of the King Chamber of Commerce headquarters. Yan King looked at the chaos on the street, and a trace of pity rose on her pretty and gentle face. Husband. She looked up at Wei Hong beside her, hesitant to say, are we just going to sit there and watch? Of course not. Wei Hong shrugged and chuckled, didn't I ask you to prepare a large amount of medicinal materials and food supplies in advance half a month ago? In addition to leaving a batch for our own use, you can sell a batch of food at the original price. First of all, this can help a lot of ordinary people, and secondly, it can also accumulate some good reputation for the King Chamber of Commerce. It's just that you have to make less money, so why not do it? Yan King smiled happily when she heard it. She didn't care much about making money or not, and it was good to do some good deeds. Since Wei Hong notified her to stockpile food and medicinal materials half a month ago, she quickly mobilized funds to start preparations, and almost all the working capital of the entire Chamber of Commerce was spent on this. If she learned from other merchants to sell food at a high price at this moment, I believe that such a large batch of goods will definitely make her a lot of money. However, she wanted to do some good deeds for ordinary people more than making money, so she readily agreed to his proposal and chuckled softly. My husband is still thoughtful. Although we can't help too many people, we have done our part after all. Wei Hong hugged Yan King's soft body, and for a moment he felt mixed emotions. Beauty is common, but kindness is not. How could he marry such a beautiful and kind woman? It's worth his life in the world. But the lifespan of mortals is only 100 years. Think about grandfather, think about Yan King. Maybe when he stands at the top of the world, these relatives may have turned into a cup of yellow earth. Alice. Wei Hong sighed suddenly. I don't know if he was sighing at the sadness of the world or sighing at his own future. Second miss, son-in-law. Shopkeeper Zhao knocked on the door and walked in, saying respectfully, the soup is ready, do you want to drink a bowl? Okay. Wei Hong nodded, and walked hand in hand with Yan King to the backyard of the Chamber of Commerce. A large pot has been set up here, with a large pot of medicinal materials boiling on it. Hundreds of people from the Chamber of Commerce gathered here. This is the anti-epidemic and strengthening soup that Wei Hong personally prescribed. Although the medicinal materials used in it are very ordinary, the effect is still good. After drinking it, it has the effect of strengthening the body and preventing plague. Son-in-law, take a look. Shopkeeper Zhao personally served the bowl and handed it over. Wei Hong took it and took a sip, savoring the rich medicinal fragrance in it, and then nodded with satisfaction and said, "It's well boiled, just like this. A large pot every day for everyone in the Chamber of Commerce to drink a bowl, and the remaining can be distributed and taken back to the family to drink. Son-in-law, this medicinal soup really has the effect of preventing plague." Shopkeeper Zhao was full of surprise, and others were also skeptical. Wei Hong was too lazy to explain too much, and said directly, "It's up to you whether you believe it or not. Drink it if you want to, and don't force it if you don't want to drink it. Drink, of course. Hey, who doesn't drink the medicine is a fool." "Thank you, son-in-law." Everyone spoke at once. Although no one believes that this soup can prevent epidemics, drinking it can always strengthen the body, right? Naturally, no one would be stupid enough to refuse. Yan King knew Wei Hong's ability. She knew very well that this medicine would definitely cure the plague, but she just didn't know how effective it was. "Husband, is one bowl a day enough? Do you want to drink more?" Yan King asked in a low voice. "We still have a lot of medicinal materials in our warehouse. If they are useful, we can go outside to boil them and give them to the people." "No." Wei Hong shook his head and refused. "You can sell grain at a fair price to gain a good reputation, but you must not boil and give medicine on the street. Once people know that we have medicine, you dare not even think about the consequences." Yan King's face turned pale and she quickly gave up the idea. She is also a smart person, and naturally knows how crazy people will do in desperation, so medicine can be sold but never given away. Let's put it this way. We do have a lot of medicinal materials in stock, and we can't use them all. Wei Hong chuckled and said, "You can sell a batch at a fair price, and send someone to sell a batch at a high price on the black market." "Okay." Yan King agreed obediently. She thought about it and asked, "Do you want to boil it at home? I can send someone to boil it and send it back, so that Grandpa won't be infected with the epidemic when he's old." "No need, there are other prescriptions at home." Wei Hong didn't hide it either. This kind of soup in the Chamber of Commerce only has a simple epidemic prevention effect. In order not to attract people's prying, I deliberately lowered the effect. It can only guarantee that there is no infection. Naturally, we won't use this soup at home. "That's right." Yan King nodded in agreement. Thinking about the dozens of branches of the Chamber of Commerce, with a total of 200 or 300 people, plus the families behind them, Yan King only felt a heavy burden pressing on her heart, which made her feel quite strenuous. It is not easy to take care of family and relatives in times of chaos, so how can there be spare energy to help too many people? "Uncle Zhao, notify everyone." Yan King said, "All major branches of our Chamber of Commerce will suspend the sale of all kinds of goods and switch to selling affordable grain. Each person and household is limited to purchasing 5 kilograms per day." "Yes." Shopkeeper Zhao hurriedly took the order and left. Chapter 259, Drinking Poison to Quench Thirst. When the whole city was in turmoil, the King Chamber of Commerce seemed to be a clear stream flowing into the sea. One after another, the branches opened in spite of the difficulties. One after another, the shop assistants covered their mouths and noses with cloth strips and began to move large quantities of food to the door of the store. There is food here. Hurry, hurry, the King Chamber of Commerce has food." The people on the street who had not yet grabbed food gathered around excitedly. The shop assistants lined up to block the flow of people, and the branch shopkeeper shouted loudly, don't squeeze, everyone. My King Chamber of Commerce has specially taken out a large amount of reserve food for the benefit of all the neighbors. The boss said that no matter how the price of food in the outside world soars, we will sell it at the usual price of 45 won per caddy, but each household is limited to purchasing 5 caddies a day. Everyone line up, line up. After a round of shouting, the crowded people on the street finally felt a little relieved. Then there was an earth-shaking cheer. Great job to King Chamber of Commerce. Miss Yan is kind. The neighbors all remember your kindness. Thank you, Miss Yan. The neighbors were very excited, and their gratitude was beyond words. I believe that after today, the good reputation of King Chamber of Commerce will surely spread. If we are lucky enough to survive this disaster, it will be enough to lay a good foundation for future development and growth. At least a reputation among the neighbors will not be bad. But how can we put an end to this catastrophe and turmoil just like this? Everything is just a drop in the bucket. I'm going out for a while. Wei Hong casually explained a few things, carrying a large bag of food, meat, and medicinal materials, and walked out of the Chamber of Commerce from the back door. Now that the turmoil has just started, the order has not collapsed. There are also masters from Yan'anyu Tower secretly protecting the King Chamber of Commerce. Therefore, Wei Hong is not worried about the safety of Yan King and others. As for him, he was just going to deliver some supplies to Deng Haishen. Now his relatives and acquaintances have been arranged, but he still doesn't know what's going on, and he doesn't know whether he has bought any food. Sure enough, as soon as Wei Hong walked outside Deng Haishen's house, he heard bursts of coughing coming from the courtyard. It was obvious that he had been infected with a plague. After knocking on the door, Deng Haishen, who looked weak and pale, came out in a robe and opened the door. Seeing him, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. "Why is it you, kid? Besides me, who else would care about you, an old and lonely person?" Wei Hong laughed and joked. "That's right, cough cough." Deng Haisheng smiled bitterly and shook his head. After inviting him in, he dragged his sick body to boil water for tea. "Don't be busy, take a rest." Wei Hong put down his things and looked around, and found that his house was empty and the rice jar was empty. It was obvious that Deng Haisheng had been ill for a few days and there was no food left at home. The supplies brought by Wei Hong just solved his urgent needs. Here are 100 kilograms of rice and flour, 30 kilograms of bacon, and a few packets of medicinal materials. Wei Hong casually reminded, "You can make some medicine and drink it later. It can eliminate the epidemic and strengthen the body. You can cure your illness in less than 3 or 5 doses. Stay away from home recently." "Okay." Deng Haisheng agreed with a complicated look. He looked at Wei Hong, and then at the full supplies. He couldn't help but feel very sad. How could he have accepted such a cheap apprentice? "Luckily, I have you, otherwise I would either die of illness or starve to death." Deng Haisheng sighed leisurely. "Let's not talk about this." Wei Hong said indifferently, "Eat and use the things first. I will send you another batch in a few days." "It's not worth much?" "Okay." Deng Haisheng couldn't help shaking his head and smiling bitterly. "I hope your medicine is useful. Get well soon. I guess I'll be busy next time." "Oh." Wei Hong was a little surprised. What else can he, an executioner, do? There is no need to go around beheading people when a major plague breaks out. "You don't understand." Deng Haisheng coughed lightly and poured himself a cup of warm water, and said helplessly, "Although the plague does not often break out in the capital of the gods, every time something happens, they will always draw idle personnel from various departments to participate in the disposal. Now there are just some signs of the plague. Maybe the higher-ups haven't responded yet, but there will definitely be big moves in a few days. By then, we will have to drive a bunch of people with the plague to one place and let them fend for themselves. We will also impose martial law in the whole city to eliminate the plague. We will either get sick and be driven to one place to fend for ourselves, or we will have to throw corpses and burn them. In short, we will definitely not be idle." Wei Hong had no doubt about this. The Great Zhou dynasty was established for 800 years. What scenes have they not seen? There are naturally ways to deal with the outbreak of plague in the capital of a country. I believe that the entire imperial hospital will have to be dispatched in a few days, right? I just don't know how many people will die after a disaster. I'm leaving first." Wei Hong didn't stay any longer, and said, "If you have any trouble, come to Wei's house to find me. The butcher shop is closed recently." "Okay." Deng Haisheng silently sent him to the door. As soon as Wei Hong walked out of the alley, he saw dozens of 3 immortals believers carrying the statues of gods and walking through the streets, giving out talisman water to passers-by along the way, attracting countless people to worship. The 3 immortals have come to the world to save all living beings. Talisman water cures diseases and lives a long life. The believers kept shouting slogans. Many poor uncles and aunts held incense and followed the statues tremblingly, bowing their heads step by step, just to ask for a mouthful of talisman water to treat the patients. Among the crowd, many people have already developed coughing symptoms. Many people even coughed up blood while walking and fell to the ground, scaring the people around them to disperse in a hurry, fearing that they would be contaminated with a little bad luck. At this time, The three immortals believers would come forward with a friendly face, help the weak patients who fell to the ground, and then give them a mouthful of talisman water. After a while, these weak patients will slowly wake up, and then become energetic, as if most of their illness has gone. In this way, the people on the street naturally become more crazy. They scrambled to chase the procession of the three immortals sect. The streets were full of falling incense ash, and the scene was exaggerated and evil. What a weird method. Wei Hong couldn't help but frown. He observed everyone on the street with his spiritual pupils, and he could find that the gray gas on them was getting thicker and thicker. Every sip of the three immortals sect's talisman water seemed to stimulate their life potential and make these people temporarily energetic. But in fact, this is like drinking poison to quench thirst. After the life potential is exhausted, they will eventually die. The three immortals sect's move is definitely suspected of taking human lives lightly. This is in the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty, under the feet of the emperor. How dare they? And Wei Hong never believed that no one in the Great Zhou royal family would be able to see such a dirty method. I'm afraid it was tacitly approved. What exactly does the three immortals sect want to do? Wei Hong felt an inexplicable sense of uneasiness in his heart. Chapter 260, Body Collection Team, Blockade Area. Days passed by. This shocking plague finally broke out in the capital of the gods. Within a few days, large numbers of people coughed up blood and fell to the ground and died. There were cries all over the city, and mourning was everywhere. The number of people who suddenly died on the streets every day continued to increase. Many corpses stank in the streets and alleys, and no one collected them. The whole city was in chaos. After a few days, the court finally responded. Various departments began to draw personnel to cooperate with a patrol camp to impose martial law in the city, and dozens of slums were divided as confinement areas. Soldiers began to search from house to house. Anyone with many symptoms such as coughing, fever, chills and coldness was taken away and thrown into the confinement area, leaving them to fend for themselves. Treatment? Not possible. Although the Imperial Hospital had been ordered to go out, it forcibly coordinated thousands of medical clinics and drugstores in the city, but what they did was not to treat the patients immediately, but to forcibly take away all the medicinal materials and all the doctors. Then, they began to treat the rich and powerful from house to house. As for ordinary people, boil a big pot of medicine on the street every day, and line up to get the medicine. Who knows if it works? Now the whole city is naturally full of resentment. But what can the people do when they are angry? Faced with absolute suppression by force, the only thing that can be done is death. As an executioner registered in the Ministry of Justice, Wei Hong was also summoned as Deng Haisheng said. All officials and servants with names in various departments must report to their respective yamen. Early in the morning of the third day of August, Wei Hong arrived at the Ministry of Justice to report early. Hundreds of officials and servants had gathered here early in the morning, and Deng Haisheng was naturally among them. After taking the medicine, he has gradually recovered and his body has returned to its previous strength. Seeing Wei Hong coming, he quickly waved and pulled him to his side. Master Deng, are you feeling better? Not bad, I won't die for now. Deng Haisheng handed him a long piece of linen and said, put it on. I heard from the Imperial Hospital that covering your mouth and nose with cloth can prevent the disease. According to the rules, everyone has to wear it. Wei Hong glanced around and found that everyone had cloth covering their faces. Although he was not afraid of the plague virus at all, he still covered his mouth and nose. Why did you summon us here today? What else can it be for? It's to do our jobs. Haha, all departments are busy now, and we have something to do. That's right. Countless corpses are thrown out of the city every day, and many people in the streets are going to die. The voices of everyone talking incessantly reached his ears. Deng Haisheng lowered his voice and reminded, Shangwen called us here to carry corpses and clean up the filth. This is hard work. If you are not careful, you may be infected with a plague. There is no salary. If you don't want to, I can help you with one or two things. Wei Hong couldn't help but feel a little moved when he heard this. In fact, with his current status, he no longer needs to do errands and miscellaneous work. If he spends money to smooth things over, no one will care if he is the only one. But after thinking about it, he still shook his head and rejected the proposal. It doesn't matter if it's dirty and tiring, just think of it as finding something to do. The identity of the executioner can bring him a lot of opportunities every month. Once there is an opportunity for large-scale beheading, he can always make a lot of money, So Wei Hong still doesn't want to give up. At this time, bribing Shengwen to escape hard labor is inevitably too high profile. So Wei Hong stood in the crowd without saying a word, just working honestly later. There are quite a lot of people who died in the capital during this period, and the evil spirits everywhere have increased a lot, which is suitable for the ghost child to grow. If I am assigned to collect corpses later, the ghost child can take the opportunity to devour a wave of residual souls. Wei Hong thought in his heart. After a while, an official really took a book and started to call the roll. After a while, the middle-aged official said loudly, "Today, we are responsible for collecting corpses in the major markets in the south of the city. No one is allowed to be sneaky. If anyone is found, he will be punished for obstructing the elimination of the epidemic. Do you understand?" "Yes," everyone agreed sparsely. The middle-aged official did not say much, waved his hand and led the team to the south of the city. The Ministry of Justice had hundreds of people equipped with 70 or 80 wheelbarrows. There were about 3 or 4 people in a group, and everyone spontaneously formed a team with people they knew. Wei Hong and Deng Haisheng naturally came together. There were also 2 executioners standing beside them who had a good relationship with him. Everyone was an acquaintance, and their faces were very solemn when they walked together. The streets and alleys of the capital city were already full of corpses. The first to fall were naturally beggars and poor people. Many beggars were already weak and depleted. After a plague, they were hungry and sick. They fell to the ground and could never stand up again. At this time, the corpse collection team became extremely critical. If no one collected the corpses, these dead bodies would definitely breed a more terrifying plague, so the court had to send people out to work. In the end, the dirty and tiring work naturally fell on Wei Hong and others. "Brothers, work. You guys go to this street, and you guys go this way." The middle-aged official kept directing, and the mighty corpse collection team collected all the way. Everyone carried the corpses and threw them on the cart, which didn't take much effort. The wheelbarrows were soon filled with corpses. Looking at the pairs of blue and white faces with eyes wide open, even though Wei Hong and others had long been accustomed to life and death, they couldn't help but feel a little scared. Passers-by in the streets and alleys were frightened when they saw the corpse collection team, for fear of being contaminated by bad luck. When we arrived at the blockade area of the slum, the situation became even more terrifying. Countless shacks were built in the streets and alleys, and batches of patients were driven here. The streets and alleys were closely guarded by patrol soldiers, and no one was allowed to enter or leave at will. Some of the patients here have already stood straight and lost their voices. Some are still lingering in the sheds. Some who still have the strength are constantly begging and crying, hoping that someone will let them out. The scene is comparable to purgatory. This place has been taken over by the army. The middle-aged official coldly warned, except for 2 meals a day, no one will be allowed to enter, and our corpse collection team is the only one who can step into it. 80% of the patients inside will become dead. If they can't make it, they will eventually be dragged to the mass grave and burned. If they don't want to die, they will try their best to make trouble, such as pretending to be dead, or snatching your identity tokens to pretend to escape. There are even people who will coerce and lure you, offering sky-high prices to deceive you, so be smart after entering. Do you understand? Everyone took a deep breath when they heard this. Everyone put away their carefree thoughts. After all, no one knew what kind of people were hiding in the chaos. If they lost their lives because of collecting corpses, it would be no joke. In a desperate situation, everyone was like a wolf and a tiger. Who dared to underestimate these people? Chapter 261 Hell on Earth. Military, please let me out. I have old people and young children to take care of. I don't want to die. What will happen to my family if I die? Military. I'm not sick, let me out. My lords, I have money. I'll give you money. Let me out. After the corpse collection team entered the quarantine camp, the patients gathered around one by one. Some of them knelt on the ground and cried bitterly, while others held gold, silver and jewelry to tempt them. Everyone's face was filled with pleading. Obviously, they knew what it meant to be left here to fend for themselves. In order to survive, they would do anything. Several brothel girls who still had charm boldly opened their lapels and sobbed pitifully, just to rouse the sympathy of the corpse collection team. But at the critical moment of life and death, who dares to be greedy and lustful? You have to know that the patients here are all infected with a plague. It is easy to be infected if they are infected by the slightest bit. Who is not afraid of death? Get out of here, all of you, get out of here. Damn it, don't get close to me. Go to hell, get out of here. The corpse collection team avoided the patient's touch as if they were avoiding the plague. Those with a bad temper kicked people away. After a violent beating, the patients were so scared that they dared not get close. They huddled in the shacks, either crying in despair or staring at everyone with resentment and anger on their faces like a poisonous snake. Wei Hong sighed silently in his heart and could only say sorry. He could empathize with these people's pain, despair, and unwillingness. But he couldn't save everyone, and he wouldn't even take the risk to save any stranger, unless the other party had a relationship with him. Otherwise he could only watch these people fend for themselves. Maybe this is fate. Get to work. Deng Haisheng urged, and everyone quickly got busy. Wei Hong held a corpse collecting stick and poked at the silent people. Anyone whose body was stiff, without body temperature and breathing, and who could be confirmed dead, could be thrown directly onto the wheelbarrow. As for those who were still breathing, they were naturally not allowed to be taken away. Many people tried to get away with pretending to be dead, but they didn't know that not everyone was qualified to use this trick. At least in front of the warriors in the Ministry of Justice, ordinary fake death methods really couldn't be hidden. Everyone like Wei Hong had lives on their hands. They knew what a dead person and a living person looked like at a glance. The probability that someone who could be infected by the plague was not a strong person, so how could they deceive people? Just as Wei Hong ignored several people who pretended to be dead. A middle-aged fat man with a gray and decadent face and wearing a purple brocade robe opened his eyes helplessly. Sir, how about taking me out for 10,000 taels? Wei Hong didn't even bother to raise his eyelids and silently rejected him. 30,000 taels. The middle-aged fat man pleaded weakly. Please help me, I am a merchant from Mobei, and I am stranded in Chengdu because of trivial matters and cannot go out. As long as I can escape and drink a few doses of medicine, there will always be a chance to survive. Staying here is a death. 50,000 taels, don't leave. 100,000 taels. The middle-aged fat man kept raising the price in despair. Although Wei Hong has been unmoved. But the several corpse collectors around him rolled their throats a few times, and their eyes changed a little. Don't seek death. Deng Haisheng lowered his voice to remind everyone, do you have the ability to take him out as a dead person, and do you have the ability to get him out of the city? There are patrol soldiers supervising and guarding along the way. The corpses will be burned when they arrive at the mass grave. There is no loophole to exploit. Be careful that you have a life to make money but no life to spend it. When everyone heard this, their faces were slightly stern. Those who were originally tempted all looked at their noses and hearts, and did not dare to make any abnormal movements. After all, compared with their lives, money is just some external things. If the truth is revealed, the whole family will die. Damn, these court lackeys. Why do you leave us here to fend for ourselves? You are unworthy of being human. Beasts, these beasts. This scene fell into the eyes of the patients around, and aroused a lot of public anger. They were either angry and cursing, or resentful and cursing, but more of them were lying on the ground in despair and silently waiting to die. Some children stared helplessly with their eyes wide open. Every shack was filled with a sad atmosphere. If Wei Hong had not already trained his heart into a heart of stone. Just this one look, I am afraid that he would breed a demon in his heart. It has nothing to do with me. I am just an ordinary person and can't save the masses. Wei Hong silently comforted himself in his heart, and his eyes became more and more determined. One body after another was thrown onto the wheelbarrow. After loading more than a dozen bodies, 2 or 3 people pushed it out together. After passing through layers of inspections by the patrol camp, they were able to leave the blockade area and finally went straight out of the city. A large open space had already been cleared at the foot of the city wall of Chengdu. A large number of corpses were piled up here randomly, and then piled with wood and kerosene, and a fire startled a huge fire as soon as the fire was thrown. Crackle. Under the burning fire, thousands of corpses were burned to ashes like barbecue. Occasionally, some pretended to be dead or had not yet completely died. When a big fire burned over, they would eventually become firemen wailing and rolling, and they would die completely in less than a dozen breaths. This is simply a purgatory on earth. But Wei Hong couldn't stop it, and no one could stop it. The patrol camp soldiers stood all around and even on the city walls, staring at this place with a pair of eyes. Anyone who wanted to escape would be shot dead on the spot. Fortunately, we didn't do anything tricky. Who can escape from this kind of situation? It seems that the court is still very strict in controlling this plague. Deng Haisheng couldn't help but murmured. Oh, it's not. In this way, I don't know how many people will die. Everyone sighed. Wei Hong looked around deeply. His pupils had already changed slightly, and he could see clearly many things that were invisible to the naked eye. Evil spirit, yin spirit, gray spirit. And countless wandering souls and residual souls were rising and rolling in the raging fire. The gray giant curtain in the sky that was invisible to the naked eye faintly dropped tentacles, like some kind of indescribable monster, slowly absorbing the wandering souls and various evil spirits in the fire. Unconsciously, the purple air above the imperial city seemed to be a little weaker. Wei Hong looked at this unreasonable scene and couldn't help but feel a little nervous. What was controlling all this? Was it going to sacrifice the lives of the people in the city to the evil god? I thought it was just a plague. But now he found that the situation was not that simple. The three immortal sect made such a big fuss and it was definitely a conspiracy. Bad luck. Wei Hong cursed secretly and frowned as he prepared to leave. But after thinking about it, he was unwilling to let the other party go so smoothly. Looking at the increasing number of wandering souls in the pile of corpses, he smiled and had an idea. Why not take this opportunity to let the 9 ghost children absorb more wandering souls? On the one hand, it can strengthen himself, and on the other hand, it can also hinder the other party's plan. Although I don't know if it can annoy the other party, it is better than doing nothing, right? Moreover, this matter can be said to be 100 benefits for him without any harm, so why not do it? Go. Wei Hong raised his hand and patted his waist. The 9 ghost children attached to the puppets rushed out. Their faces were pale and hideous, and their eyes had a hint of cruelty. Obviously, under the daily supply of Wei Hong's blood, they were no longer dull and stupid. For more than half a year, they had to absorb a large bucket of Wei Hong's blood every day, which was almost equivalent to absorbing a refining organ realm in one day. The gloomy ghost aura on their bodies was skyrocketing every day, and they had already reached the point where even the strong men in the refining bone realm were afraid. However, because they were well trained, they dared not disobey even if their strength increased, and they were even a little timid when facing Wei Hong. It was not until they received the order that they excitedly drilled into the ground and disappeared. The fire burning the corpse pile was just ordinary fire, which could not do anything to them, and even ordinary wandering souls could not be hurt at all. However, ghosts can devour each other. The wandering souls have not yet developed spiritual intelligence, so they are naturally no match for the ghost children. They devoured the wandering souls around them in big mouthfuls underground, constantly strengthening themselves. The soldiers of the patrol camp around them were all mortals, and they could not see any clues at all. Let's go, keep working. Deng Haisheng urged from the side. Wei Hong nodded and turned away, leaving the ghost children here. This place is destined to be very lively in the near future. I don't know how many wandering souls and evil ghosts will be bred in the crematorium. Just let them grow freely. He has no direct connection with the ghost children. Even if the masters behind the 3 immortal sect discovered these ghost children. In the end, it may not be easy to find yourself as their feeder among the vast crowd, so it is safest to leave them here and find them again after some time. Chapter 262. The speaker is unintentional, but the listener is intentional. Days passed one by one. As the executioner of the Ministry of Justice, Wei Hong ran to the front line of collecting corpses every day and witnessed this horrific catastrophe with his own eyes. Under the plague, human life is worthless. Once a person who was still alive and kicking the day before fell ill, he would have a high fever and foam at the mouth at night. If there were no medicinal herbs to treat him, most people would not survive for more than 2 days. Mountains of corpses were continuously sent to the cremation ground. Tens of thousands of people died every day, and many families were separated and their families were broken up. It was really pitiful and sad. Even though Wei Hong had long been accustomed to life and death and had a strong heart, he couldn't help but feel more and more heavy. In early September, the 3rd Princess Mansion. Wei Hong once again participated in a gathering of the refining Zhang realm. This time, he was not interested in buying any treasures, but just wanted to get some information about the plague in case of emergency. As a result, he was shocked as soon as he arrived at the 3rd Princess Mansion. There were just too many people. In the past, this kind of small gathering usually had 20 to 30 people. After all, there were not many scattered people in the divine capital who had reached the refining Zhang realm, and not everyone had time to come. But today, the number of participants was as high as 70 to 80 people. So many people filled the backyard garden of the 3 princesses' mansion, and half of them were strangers. Wei Hong was naturally a little confused. Fortunately, he saw familiar faces such as Wei Hong and Medicine Granny at a glance. "Brother Zio, why are there so many people today?" Wei Hong greeted the familiar people and sat down near Wei Hong. "It's because of the recent plague." Wei Hong lowered his voice and said, "Now the divine capital is only allowed to enter but not leave. Everyone can't go out to explore, so they are naturally happy to come and exchange information and get together. Isn't that right?" Wei Hong frowned. "There are quite a few unfamiliar faces here." "That's right." Wei Hong glanced around and couldn't help muttering, "There are indeed a lot of unfamiliar faces recently. How can there be so many masters in the divine capital at this time?" The speaker is unintentional, but the listener is intentional. Wei Hong's face couldn't help but slightly sank. What on earth had happened that was worthy of the masters of the refining Zhang realm from various states and prefectures to sneak into the divine capital at this time and show up at the gathering of the third princess's mansion? These were the ones who showed up. How many more were there who didn't show up? The divine capital now was like a large vortex, and it was still unknown what kind of terrifying storm it would brew. "Everyone." A middle-aged steward came out at this time, smiling. "The affairs in the mansion are busy today, and the third princess is not convenient to come out in person to entertain you. She specially asked me to greet you guests. I hope you don't mind." Everyone heard what this meant. It was clear that the third princess didn't want to get involved in tonight's gathering, but just lent a venue and let everyone exchange information freely. A few respected people were not polite. After all, the third princess didn't attend every gathering, and they had their own communication process. "Everyone." An old man dressed as a fisherman bowed and said with a smile, "Since the third princess is not free tonight, let's just go through the usual process. Does anyone want to recruit people to do tasks or help? Now you can only enter the God City but not leave. Where can I do the task? That's right, skip this one, it's a waste of time." Everyone spoke at once. The fisherman smiled and nodded, and continued to ask, "In this case, does anyone want to trade or buy?" "Yes." A beautiful woman immediately stood up and said to everyone with a wry smile, "My family has many children and servants, and there are also many subordinate chambers of commerce. This plague is really unprepared. Who has medicine in stock? Can we trade one or two? Me too, there are still hundreds of people in my family who need medicine. Count me in, whoever has medicine can make an offer." At this time, another 17 or 18 people stood up and spoke. Although these people are powerful people in the refining realm, they always have family members and relatives behind them. There are dozens of people at least, and hundreds of people at most who need to use the medicinal materials to eliminate the epidemic and consolidate the foundation. Such a large amount is naturally not easy to buy. Damn it. Wei Hong complained unhappily. The court has confiscated the medicinal materials of the major chambers of commerce, and even the doctors are under the jurisdiction of the Imperial Hospital. Now it is not only inconvenient to seek medical treatment, but even the medicinal materials are sold at dozens of times the sky-high price on the black market. Where can I buy them? This resonated with many people. Even the powerful people in the refining realm are very passive in this storm. They may not be afraid of the plague, but what about their families? Not everyone has prepared everything in advance like Wei Hong. Once their family members are infected with a plague, no matter how powerful they are, they can only beg for medicine everywhere, and finally pay a huge price, or even owe a lot of favors to solve the matter. If someone comes forward to help at this time, I am afraid that many people will owe favors, right? As expected, a middle-aged man dressed as a businessman stood up and said with a smile, "Everyone? I still have some medicinal herbs left. If you don't mind, you can come to me for tea after the banquet." It turns out to be Brother Liu. "Haha, I'm sorry to bother you later." "Thank you Brother Liu for your kindness. Let's talk about it later." Everyone flattered him again. Wei Hong recognized who this middle-aged businessman was. His nominal identity was a wealthy businessman in Tongzhou, but in fact he should be a white glove of a big family in Chengdu. He usually helps people do things that are not visible to the public. Such a high-profile behavior is just to win people over. What a coincidence, I also have some medicinal herbs. If you need them, you can come to me for details. You can find me at any time at Wangjiang Tower in the south of the city. I also have some medicinal herbs, and I know a little about medical skills. If you need them, you can come to me. At this time, people kept standing up to express their opinions. Obviously, there are many people who have this idea. After all, it only takes some worthless herbs. Whether it is recruiting a strong man in the refining organ realm or gaining a favor from a strong man in the refining organ realm, it is a very cost-effective reward. Wei Hong was too lazy to care about this. Although he had a lot of herbs in his hand, he didn't want to trade with outsiders, let alone gain favors from any strong man. After a round of toasts at the banquet, someone finally mentioned the exchange of information. Most of the people came for this, so they all pricked up their ears. Everyone. A charming woman said with a fake smile, "The situation in the divine capital has been so chaotic recently. I wonder what the court will do next? If anyone has unique intelligence to reveal, I will be very grateful. Yes, there are frequent chaos in the divine capital now, and we really have no idea. Doesn't Brother Li have a way in the court? Do you know the inside story?" When everyone was talking, many people set their sights on a middle-aged scholar in blue. Obviously this person's identity and background are not simple, so everyone is sure that he knows something. Chapter 263. Rumor has it that the new emperor is critically ill? The middle-aged scholar in blue is called Li Lu. On the surface, he is a late-stage martial artist in the refining internal organs realm, and he is not loyal to any force. But in fact, he has complicated relationships behind him. It is rumored that he is a person with a strong background and great connections. On weekdays, people can always get a lot of secrets from him. Most of the people who came here today also wanted to see if he had any exclusive news. Everyone. Li Lu took a sip of wine, bowed his hands with a smile on his face and said, "You are embarrassing me. I am just an idle and poor man. How can I have any news? Brother Li, don't be modest. We all know your ability. Yes, this matter is not small. Brother Li, it is better not to hide it." Everyone complimented him. After Li Lu satisfied his vanity, he lowered his voice and said, "Since you all value this, I would be embarrassed if I didn't reveal every word. I do know a little piece of information, but I don't know whether it's true or not. Just treat it as a joke. Brother Li, please tell me." Everyone urged him. Li Lu said mysteriously with a full tone, "You don't know yet? The new emperor is critically ill." Hiss. Everyone gasped in shock at these few words. Their faces changed unpredictably, as if they had seen a ghost. Impossible. Xiao Hongsheng couldn't help but question, the new emperor has been on the throne for more than a year. He is only 32 this year. When he was in the prince's mansion, he was also a very powerful warrior. How could he be so strong as an ox and be so easily critically ill? Yes, this is unreasonable. It is rumored that the royal family has a secret method that can raise the emperor's strength to the innate realm out of thin air. The new emperor will only be stronger than when he was in the prince's mansion. How could he easily get into trouble? There are many masters in the royal family. The current emperor has a doctor to check his pulse every day. It is impossible for him to make any mistakes. Everyone agreed. Li Lu smiled disdainfully. What if a cultivator takes action? This. Everyone was frightened again. Many unfamiliar faces in the crowd also narrowed their eyes and secretly became interested. After saying these two sentences, Li Lu was unwilling to say more. He just smiled and said, "It's just a rumor. You just listen to it. Xianji Pavilion dare not sell this kind of information. Just think that I am talking drunkenly." Everyone knew whether it was drunken talk or not. There was no way to refute the truth of Li Lu's news. But if you think about it carefully, everyone was frightened and pale. Damn it, so many people died in the battle for the throne. Is it going to be turbulent again after just over a year? Brother Li, this news is probably true. I heard that the army that General Meng was originally preparing to return to the capital seemed to be deliberately delaying time. They should have returned to the capital last month, but they have been dragging their feet. Good guy, the Meng family is also preparing to get involved. Who knows? What if the new emperor really gets into trouble? Will the sixth prince who is living abroad come back to life? Everyone talked one after another. Many problems were revealed unconsciously. Wei Hong listened to these half-true and half-false news silently, and felt that tonight was not in vain. The small circle of the refining Zhang realm knew more news than the general circle. Xianji Pavilion would never dare to sell such secrets. It can only be circulated privately through such a small circle. Although it is unknown whether it is true or not, it is better than knowing nothing. The new emperor has only been on the throne for more than a year. If he dies at this time, tut. Wei Hong frowned and murmured, "This god city will probably have to go through another war." Not only that, so many new faces suddenly appeared. I don't believe it if you say it has nothing to do with this matter. Haha, there is both plague and war. It seems that this god city can't stay any longer. Xiao Hongsheng and others also echoed beside him. For a time, many people had the idea of escaping from the god city. Although the capital is now under a state of full martial law, everyone present is a master of the refining organ realm, and their connections are extraordinary. If they really want to escape, there are ways. For example, Wei Hong, he had already sent the masters of the Misty Rain Tower to dig an underground passage 2 or 3 miles long, connecting the city and the outside of the city. In the event of an accident, his relatives can easily evacuate, so he doesn't worry about the war affecting himself. At the banquet, everyone continued to toast, talking about various sources of information, whether true or false. Wei Hong listened silently, but he gained a lot. Halfway through the banquet, a beautiful woman in her 30s wearing a purple dress, who still had her charm, said, "This turmoil seems to be a little strange. When the nest is overturned, no egg will be left unbroken. We are all scattered people without support. Have you ever thought about sticking together to keep warm?" This proposal immediately aroused the interest of many people. In such a turbulent moment, it was not just ordinary people who were panicking. The strong men in the refining realm present actually did not have much sense of security. If someone organized a group of 2 to keep warm, everyone would naturally be very happy. It's really good to be able to stick together to keep warm in a great chaos, but if it's just a verbal group, I'm afraid the deterrent effect to the outside world will not be enough. Yes, why don't we form a scattered alliance, so that we can help each other in case of trouble, right? That makes sense. A bunch of people echoed. The idea of a scattered alliance quickly emerged. But Wei Hong inexplicably felt that something was wrong. He always felt that there was an invisible hand that wanted to gather everyone together. What was the idea? Brother Zhang, do you want to join this loose alliance? Xiao Hongsheng frowned and asked. Just follow the crowd. Wei Hong thought for a while and smiled. Anyway, it's just a loose alliance in name only, so we are not afraid of others' calculations. Can it still restrict us? That's right. Xiao Hongsheng laughed dumbly when he heard this. Since everyone wants to keep warm together, they just follow the crowd and join. Anyway, it's just a loose alliance name, and it really has no binding force on everyone. And even if there is a binding force, most of them are just fake identities. Once something goes wrong, everyone will run faster than rabbits, so how can they really care about the loose alliance? After all, for everyone, the gathering of the 3 county lords' mansions is just a place to accept tasks and exchange information. It's not a pity to lose it. Finally, under the promotion of several highly respected masters of the refining organ realm, after a while of discussion, everyone present decided to form a loose alliance in the name of Xuanwu to protect themselves. The alliance has no management personnel, no leader and rules, and all members are free to come and go. Daily transactions, gatherings, and sharing of information are also the same as before without any changes. But Wei Hong knew that some people would not waste their efforts on this. The establishment of the Xuanwu Sanming might drag some people present into the abyss, and this definitely did not include him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, The Sinful Realm, The Secrets of the Great Zhou. Late at night, after the Xuanwu Sanming banquet ended, all the strong men in the refining Zhang realm dispersed, and carriages drove away from the 3rd princess mansion, and soon disappeared in the streets and alleys of the night. Medicine Granny's carriage was shaking all the way back to her small courtyard in the south of the city. She jumped off the carriage while coughing lightly, and drove the carriage into the courtyard. When the candlelight was lit in the room, the figure of an ugly old man in hemp clothes appeared on a chair. Medicine Granny was not surprised at all, as if she had expected him to come. Is everything going well? The old man in hemp clothes asked leisurely. It's just a formality. Medicine Granny answered irrelevantly. The 6th prince's people are really trying their best to pull more people down. Today they have proposed to form the Xuanwu Sanmeng, and the strong men in the refining Zhang realm present have joined the association. It doesn't matter, they can make trouble, just don't affect us. The old man in hemp clothes sneered indifferently, but his eyes looked out of the door silently. Granny Yao turned around suddenly, and saw a tall figure who had appeared outside the door at some point, and was very close to them. Hiss! Granny Yao gasped in fear. She had never been approached so close to anyone without making a sound. This meant that the opponent's strength was far beyond imagination. If he wanted to, he could sneak attack and kill someone in an instant. It's you? How dare you follow me? Granny Yao's face suddenly turned cold. Wei Hong laughed undisguisedly. The old man in hemp clothes had a tense face that relaxed instantly. He exhaled a foul breath and said, "Since you are here, come in and sit down." "Do you know him?" Granny Yao was stunned. "I know him." The old man in hemp clothes waved his hand to indicate that she didn't need to be nervous. Wei Hong then walked into the house and sat down leisurely. He saw Granny Yao leaving in a hurry just now, and he followed subconsciously. With his tracking skills, the other party would not be able to find him. Unexpectedly, he actually ran into an acquaintance, Zhang Yuanke of the 10,000 Poison sect. Wei Hong was not surprised at all. Ever since he found out that Granny Yao was from the Wandu sect, he knew that Zhang Yuanke would definitely come here once he returned to the capital. After all, this was their contact base, and Granny Yao's identity and force could guarantee the safety of this base, so there was no reason for him not to come. Although he changed his appearance, he did not deliberately suppress his voice. Zhang Yuanke could recognize his identity as soon as he heard it. Of course Granny Yao also knew him. After all, he had come here to buy poisonous herbs under the fake identity of Zhang Fei, and had just met at the banquet. "Who are you?" Granny Yao's eyes wandered between him and Zhang Yuanke, as if she was guessing why the two knew each other. Zhang Yuanke said sinisterly, "This is a poison genius I talked to you before. Don't worry, his identity is credible." Wei Hong smiled slightly, and everything was self-evident. He and Zhang Yuanke were both teachers and friends. They also formed a deep friendship in the Luotian Poison Cave. This friendship has crossed the boundaries of identity, age and gender, as if two masters of poison have a mutual admiration for each other, and are instinctively willing to trust each other. This is also the reason why Wei Hong dared to show up after recognizing his identity. First, he was absolutely sure that he could escape unscathed. Second, he also believed that Zhang Yuanke would not harm him, and finally he was sure that the other party knew something that he didn't know, so they met today. Mr. Zhang, I am really sorry for disturbing you rashly today. Wei Hong said lightly, "It's just that the situation in the capital of God is really complicated and changeable now. I traded with Grandma Yao once last time, and I saw that she was a member of the 10,000 Poison sect, so I dared to come here to talk." "No problem." Zhang Yuanke sighed and said, "You are also half of my 10,000 Poison sect disciple, just don't tell this to others." "Of course not." Wei Hong promised quickly. Zhang Yuanke nodded and said with emotion, "In addition, it is good for you to be more cautious. Now the capital of the gods is about to turn into purgatory. If you have a way to leave, you'd better leave early, so as not to be cannon fodder here in the end." Oh. Wei Hong was not surprised but happy. The other party really knew something. He stood up and bowed solemnly, saying, "This is related to the lives of many of my relatives. I hope that Zhang Lao can solve my doubts. I will be grateful." Medicine Granny opened her mouth to stop her. But Zhang Yuanke raised his hand to signal her to shut up, and then said, "I won't hide it from you. All this is the work of the national teacher behind the three immortals. She probably wants to sacrifice all the lives in the city with blood. If you can escape, escape as soon as possible." Blood sacrifice. Wei Hong couldn't help but twitching his eyebrows. Although he didn't know what blood sacrifice was, he knew just by listening to this word that it was clearly a method of evil demons. Could it be that the other party wanted the lives of millions of people in the city? Damn, it's still the immortal cultivators who are cruel. They would sacrifice millions of people at any time. Aren't they afraid of committing serious sins? We don't know the specific details. Zhang Yuanke sighed and said, "We only know that the Great Zhou dynasty is a sin domain. Demon cultivators from the outside world often break into this place to sacrifice lives, either to seek a breakthrough in cultivation or to sacrifice various magic tools. This time should be no exception." Sin domain. Wei Hong was stunned again. "That's right." Zhang Yuanke continued, "According to notes of the first ancestor of my Wandu men, the Great Zhou dynasty seems to be vast, but it is actually just a slightly larger island. The real continent is outside the vast ocean in the northwest of the Great Zhou. The land there is thousands of times more vast than that of the Great Zhou, and the population is in the hundreds of billions. It is difficult for mortals to measure even 1/10 of it in their entire lives, and it has also spawned an amazing civilization of cultivating immortals. Thousands of years ago, a powerful holy land of cultivating immortals chose the Great Zhou to become a Sin domain, and set up formations to isolate the spiritual energy. From then on, the people of the Great Zhou could no longer practice, and could only become stronger through martial arts. And this piece of land has completely fallen into the mortal world. Apart from the function of suppressing evil spirits, only the special mineral deposits of Shanjian and the flesh and blood and souls of ordinary people are somewhat attractive to cultivators. Jiang Yuanqi talked freely, telling many secrets that the secular people did not know one by one, and these things were things that Wei Hong had never known before, and even the Sutra Pavilion and Prince Duan's mansion could not find the slightest record of them. So, once the strong men of the Great Zhou dynasty have reached the pinnacle of martial arts, they can only leave here and go to the real world of cultivation. Wei Hong asked. That's right. Jiang Yuanqi said with a wry smile, but that was 100 years ago. Every few decades, there would always be immortal gates coming to the Sin domain to select talents and take them away for training. Although they would only do odd jobs and run errands in the immortal gates, they would at least be qualified to practice. But for some reason, no immortal gates have descended in the past 100 years, and the warriors of the Great Zhou dynasty have no way to get out. Instead, there are often demon cultivators from the outside world who try to break in here, constantly creating all kinds of bloody killings. Now they are getting bolder and bolder, and their plans are getting more and more terrifying. They are actually targeting the millions of people in the capital of the Great Zhou dynasty. Chapter 265 Causes and Consequences, the request of the 10,000 Poison Sect. Such a cause and effect completely explains everything that happened during this period. Wei Hong was shocked and couldn't help but feel palpitations. He never expected that the Great Zhou where he was located seemed prosperous, but in fact it was just a Sin domain to suppress evil spirits. How big is this world? The Great Zhou is so vast, but it is just an island? Incredible. Wei Hong couldn't help but sigh. Jiang Yuanqi sighed sinisterly. It's really incredible. I also dreamed of escaping from here and embarking on the road of cultivating immortals. For thousands of years, countless strong people have been crazy about pursuing immortality. Unfortunately, the Sin domain is always just a Sin domain, and this is our fate. The entire Great Zhou Island has been surrounded by formations. No one can leave except the cultivators. In the past, there would be immortal gates to select talents, but in the past 100 years, the immortal gates that manage the Sin domain seem to have internal turmoil, so that they have never had time to send people to pay attention to this place. Obviously, Jiang Yuanqi also wanted to step into the world of immortal cultivation when he was young. But it just so happened that no immortal sect had set foot here in the past 100 years, so he had to waste half his life in this sinful area of the Great Zhou dynasty. It was really a pity. But Wei Hong didn't care too much. He had a life force that could increase his lifespan, and theoretically he was immortal. Even if he wasted a few hundred years in the Great Zhou dynasty, it didn't matter. Sooner or later, he would find a way to leave. The focus now was on how to survive the turmoil in the divine capital. Mr. Jiang. Wei Hong pondered for a moment and asked, do you know when the divine capital will completely turn into purgatory? Since the cultivators behind the three immortal sect have the ability to sacrifice millions of people, why are they so hesitant? And since you know about this, why is the sixth prince willing to bring people back to kill? Shouldn't he run as far away as possible at this time? A series of questions lingered in his mind. Wei Hong really couldn't help but ask them all at once. This is indeed strange. Jiang Yuanqi tapped his finger on the tea table and said slowly, the three immortal sect preached in the states of Jiangnan for decades before showing its fangs to the capital of gods. It stands to reason that the cultivators are almost invincible in the Great Zhou, and they don't need to delay for so long. Maybe they have other plans of their own, or maybe they are injured and need time to recover, or more likely they are slowly testing the attitude of the immortals behind the Great Zhou. We don't know the details of all this. However, the matter of blood sacrifice is recorded in the classics. It is rumored that to sacrifice a city with blood, it is necessary to slowly erode the city's qi and veins with a yin sha qi, and then turn a place into a dead place. It takes about 49 days. Wei Hong was secretly shocked when he heard this. In other words, the three immortal sect deliberately created a plague just to increase the yin sha qi in the whole city, and then completely erode the key and veins to turn this place into a dead zone? No wonder they controlled the court and issued an order that only entry and no exit were allowed. A rough calculation shows that the plague has been going on for more than half a month. If it breaks out completely after 49 days, then he must send his family away within 20 to 30 days, otherwise it will be difficult to leave. As for the sixth prince, he naturally wants to take the opportunity to come back and seize power. Jiang Yuanke sneered and said, he has issued a manifesto to the Jianghu forces in various states, the governors of various states, and the major border armies, and even took out the Tezu imperial decree to call on the heroes of the world to fight against the three immortals. Now a steady stream of masters and troops are coming from all over to the capital to clear the court. I see. Wei Hong secretly smacked his lips. No wonder there are so many new faces at the gathering of the three princesses' mansions. But what the hell is the Tezu imperial decree? Why would the heroes of the world and the governors of various vassal states obey the orders of the sixth prince? Jiang Yuanke seemed to see his doubts, and answered without waiting for his question. The founding ancestor of the great Zhou dynasty was an outer disciple of the immortal sect. He left a decree to suppress the evil spirits. Whenever the royal family of the great Zhou dynasty was controlled by external forces, the heroes of the world could attack it together. The sixth prince promised them great benefits, so they were naturally ready to move. It's a pity that these fools don't know about blood sacrifices. They just think this is a battle for imperial power, so they rush here to die one after another. It's pitiful and sad to think about it. At this moment, all the doubts were answered. Although I don't know what trump card the sixth prince has to dare to challenge the three immortal sect. But the next god city will definitely face a bloody storm. Before that, he must settle his family. As for himself, he has to study carefully whether to escape or not. After all, there must be great benefits in chaos, and he also wants to seek the spiritual energy in the palace. Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for clearing up my doubts. Wei Hong sighed and said, since the situation is clear, I will not stay here to bother you. If the 10,000 Poison sect has anything to say, please speak up as soon as possible. I have to repay this favor. After saying that, he was about to get up and leave. But Jiang Yuanke raised his hand to stop him as expected. It seems that the information obtained tonight is not completely without cost. He owes so many favors to the 10,000 Poison sect, and the other party wants him to repay them. Wei Hong calmly sat back in his chair and raised his hand to signal the other party to continue. We in the 10,000 Poison sect do not want to get involved in the fight for the throne of the sixth prince, nor do we want to disrupt the blood sacrifice. Jiang Yuanke took a sip of tea and said solemnly, this time, I rashly sneaked into the capital of the gods only for the fundamental method of the 10,000 Poison Sutra. Oh. Wei Hong looked puzzled. He naturally knew the power of the 10,000 Poison Sutra, the secret of the 10,000 Poison sect. Even the poison skill 10,000 Poison Palm that he practiced with his left hand was just a small branch of this sutra. But how could their fundamental law be lost outside? The original copy of the 10,000 Poison Sutra is still in the sect, but practicing this poison skill requires a special formula, which has never been recorded on paper, but has been passed down orally from generation to generation. Several decades ago, the last elder of our sect who practiced a 10,000 Poison Sutra was accidentally imprisoned in the deepest part of the Ministry of Justice's prison because of a vendetta. He died suddenly in the prison due to severe injuries. Before he died, he secretly carved the formula of the fundamental law somewhere. We have been searching secretly for these years, and even sent many people to sneak into the prison, but unfortunately we have never waited for the opportunity to take action. Jiang Yuanke finished the cause and effect slowly. Wei Hong didn't understand that the 10,000 Poison sect wanted to take advantage of the two sides fighting and the empty defense of the prison to secretly search for the fundamental law of the 10,000 Poison Sutra. This matter is not very dangerous, and it is just a good way to repay the favor. You want me to help you get the fundamental law back? Wei Hong asked back. That's right. Jiang Yuanke sighed and said, things are urgent, and I don't have time to transfer too many people. You have been entrenched in Shendia for many years, so you must have some skills and connections, and I trust you, so. Okay. Wei Hong nodded solemnly and agreed. Chapter 266, 10,000 Poison Palm, Evacuate. In just a few words, Wei Hong had reached an agreement with Jiang Yuanke. He didn't even ask the other party what he was going to do, he just left with a word and said, when you start, Send someone to draw the mark of your Wandu sect at the door of the third courtyard on Anlafang North Street, and I will come over when the time comes. Okay. Jiang Yuanka nodded and watched him leave. The old lady Yao, who had been silent from beginning to end, couldn't help but show a trace of dissatisfaction at this moment. She lowered her voice and asked, "Why do you want to tell this person about this? What if he can't keep the secret? Won't the fundamental law of my Wandu sect be taken away by others? You think too much? This law is only useful for my Wandu sect, and other people can't understand it if they take it away." Jiang Yuanka waved his hand with a nonchalant look on his face and said, "And I trust this person. If there is a mistake, I will take all the responsibility." Okay. After hearing this, the old lady Yao stopped persuading. She just said with a worried look on her face, "Time is too short. There are not many masters that our sect can mobilize, and the prepared poisons are not enough. The defense of the Cheyenne Liu is very heavy. Even if we take advantage of the chaos in the city, I am afraid it will be difficult to break in." "It's okay, he is here." Jiang Yuanka was full of confidence. But Medicine Granny couldn't help rolling her eyes and sneering, "He is just an early stage of the refining Zhang realm. Even if he has some amazing body skills, what can he do? Can he break into the Cheyenne Liu quietly? He is not that simple." Jiang Yuanka took a sip of tea, raised his eyebrows and asked sinisterly, "Did you see his left hand?" "Left hand?" Medicine Granny narrowed her eyes and recalled it carefully in her mind. Masters like her have good memories. They can recall things after seeing them once. She thought about it again and again, and didn't find that there was anything wrong with the Wei Hong's hand. "He has practiced a 10,000 poison palm," Jiang Yuanka reminded. "Impossible." Medicine Granny retorted subconsciously, "The palms of those who practice the 10,000 poison palm must be as black as ink, the skin is stiff, and it is easy to have symptoms of festering and pus. People can recognize it at a glance. There is clearly no abnormality in his palms. This is what makes him so scary." Jiang Yuanka couldn't help but sigh. This kid only learned to make poisons from me for a period of time and read some ordinary classics of our sect, but his poison skills are even better than mine, and he has already practiced a 10,000 poison palm to a place that has never been seen before and will never be seen again. If you and I had fought with him just now, we would have been restrained by him. He could ignore the poison in your hand, but his poison palm could take our lives with one blow." Medicine Granny's face was full of disbelief. She was still a little unconvinced in her heart. But after Jiang Yuanka sneered, he was too lazy to explain too much. He just sighed and said, "There are always talents in every generation. We are really old. It's a pity that this kid was born in the Sin domain. If he was born in the world of immortal cultivation, he would have become a giant sooner or later. Haha. I want to see how powerful he can be." Grandma Yao curled her lips in disdain. The next day, early in the morning, the dining table of the Wei mansion was filled with all kinds of exquisite cakes. The delicious mutton noodles made people unable to resist their appetite. Wei Hong sat at the table and ate heartily. Yan King took care of his grandfather and Yuan Yun while looking at him with a smile. The family atmosphere was warm and harmonious. Even though the outside world had become a mess, the whole city was dead silent. But the Wei mansion was still as stable as Mount Tai with Wei Hong in charge. The food, clothing, housing and transportation were no different from usual. Even the servants in the family did not get the plague. The daily life was very chic, which made people have to sigh secretly. Yan King rarely joked, "Husband is busy all day long, it's rare for him to have breakfast with us." Yet, Old Wei took a puff of his pipe and chuckled, "You are usually either busy in the butcher shop or busy outside. You don't have time to have breakfast with me for a year or two. Did the sun rise from the west today?" Wei Hong laughed dumbly. He didn't want to destroy this warm atmosphere, but in the end he couldn't help but sighed. "The situation has changed. You must withdraw immediately. Let's have breakfast together as a practice." "Practice?" everyone exclaimed in unison. Luan Zioki, who had just been summoned and hurried over, had just stepped into the hall when he heard the word practice. He couldn't help but frown and asked, "Brother Wei, is there something wrong?" "Yes," Wei Hong said slowly while eating noodles. "The sixth prince summoned the heroes of the world to prepare to take advantage of the outbreak of the plague to relaunch the battle for the throne. The gods are no longer safe." Hiss. Everyone gasped in fear. Luan Zioki could see that Wei Hong had something to hide. If it was just a matter of succession, he would not be so hasty to withdraw the people. But since he didn't say anything, she didn't ask too much. "Brother Hong, is the situation true?" Old Wei said with a complicated face. "Could it be a mistake? The new emperor has only been on the throne for more than a year." Wei Hong naturally knew how unbelievable everyone was. Everyone actually wanted to live a stable life. Although the plague killed many people, at least it would not endanger them for the time being. But if there was another war, the Wei mansion would definitely be affected. By then, even God didn't know how many more people would die, and the industry of King Chamber of Commerce would also be affected. In short, no one would have an easy time. Husband. Yan King knew that he had always been steady in doing things. The fact that he could say that everyone should withdraw proved that the situation had definitely been confirmed, so he couldn't help but stammer with a pale face, "How do we withdraw? How many people should leave?" Speaking. The servants and maids standing respectfully around couldn't help but prick up their ears, fearing that they would be left behind. Wei Hong couldn't reveal too much in public, so he just said, "Don't worry about how to evacuate. A villa has been purchased outside the city to accommodate them. There is no limit on the number of people. All employees of the Wei Mansion and the Chamber of Commerce and their families can go together, but keep it confidential." "Okay." Yan King silently breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, and the servants and maids serving around were all secretly happy. Now that the gods are in such a mess, who would not be happy to have the opportunity to evacuate? However, there are quite a few people in the Chamber of Commerce. There are dozens of people in the Wei Mansion, and there are also a lot of people in her natal family. These people have families behind them. With families behind them, the number of people is definitely impossible to be small. Such a large-scale evacuation should not have happened, but Wei Hong had already made arrangements. As long as the masters of Yan'anyu Tower were sent to monitor and control the situation, there should be no chaos. Moreover, they only need to gather people at Wei's mansion and then evacuate from the tunnel. Anyone who dares to cause trouble can be killed on the spot, so it is okay to take more people with you. Sit down and eat, and get busy after you are full. Wei Hong said to Luan Zioki. Okay. Luan Zioki nodded fiercely, with a murderous look on his face. Chapter 267 Evacuation, Heartless. That day, the news began to spread layer by layer. From the servants of the Wei Mansion to the clerks of the King Chamber of Commerce, it was passed down layer by layer. Every household knew that they had the opportunity to leave the capital of gods, and they were all excited. After all, anyone can see that the capital of gods is no longer a place to stay for a long time. Not to mention the plague, the skyrocketing food prices are enough to drive many people crazy. They can hide at home to avoid the plague, but how can they feed themselves when they eat up all the food? Therefore, everyone was naturally ecstatic to escape from the capital of gods. At Wei Hong's order, Yan King quickly led the senior executives of the Chamber of Commerce to personally count the personnel and pick up each household to the Wei Mansion one by one, and Luan Zioki sent all the staff of Yan'anyu Tower to keep an eye on each household. Once it is found that any family dares to leak the news at will, they must be killed immediately, and no news must be leaked. It's not that Wei Hong is cruel, but he has to do so. It is a great gift that he is willing to let these people evacuate with him. But every family has relatives and neighbors, and the relationships in the world are complicated. It is inevitable that there will be people who are willing to risk their lives for outsiders. He has to be on guard. Fortunately, there are enough people in Yan'anyu Tower, otherwise it would be difficult to keep an eye on so many people. From noon to dusk, people came to the Wei Mansion in twos and threes one after another. After verifying their identities through the back door, they entered the mansion and settled down. Although there are many people, the Wei Mansion is large enough. The rooms and corridors are crowded with people sitting or standing. Although crowded, it seems very quiet. Obviously, everyone knows what the consequences will be if such things are leaked, so they dare not make any sound. How is it? Wei Hong stood on an attic in the Wei Mansion, observing the surroundings with cold eyes. There were also birds on the treetops not far away, keeping watch, not missing any abnormalities. Luan Zioki stood 2 steps behind with a book in hand, and reported seriously, "Every household has been notified clearly, and we have repeatedly ordered not to leak the news. Now we have received notifications from 167 households with a total of 784 people, and there are still 52 households that have not been notified." In addition, when all the staff of Yan'anyu Tower went out to supervise each household today, they found that 7 households had leaked the news intentionally or unintentionally. The supervisors immediately took decisive action to eliminate all those who knew about it. There are also 12 families who violated the rules and brought outsiders into the Wei mansion. They either pretended to be close relatives and neighbors to try to get away with it, or openly brought outsiders into the mansion, completely ignoring the instructions conveyed. We have detained all of them. Wei Hong was not surprised at all. Human nature has always been the most complicated thing. Perhaps among the 7 families who were all killed, some were just big mouths who liked to show off, and some just didn't take the rules seriously. But no matter what, they all deserved to die, and Yan'yu Tower did not make any mistakes in killing people. Well done. Wei Hong casually ordered, let the people who have returned to the mansion spread out to monitor the surroundings. If any strangers approach, they can be killed first and reported later. Yes. Luan Zioki raised his hand and blew. A sound similar to the cry of a bird immediately came out of his mouth. The sound of swooshing spread all around, and one figure after another immediately disappeared into the darkness, quietly controlling the streets and alleys around the Wei mansion. The houses nearby have been bought, and there is such strict surveillance. After Wei Hong confirmed again and again that there would be no problems, he said, continue to pick up those who have not arrived yet, hurry up, and ignore those who have not arrived before the midnight, and everyone will leave at 3/4 of the midnight. Yes. Luan Zioki nodded and asked casually, where are the detained people? Where? The backyard. Wei Hong walked down the attic with his sleeves and went straight to the backyard. Seeing this, Luan Zioki hurriedly led the way in front, and soon brought him to a secluded courtyard in the southwest of the backyard. This was originally the residence of servants, but there were not many servants in the Wei mansion and it had been vacant. It was just right for use at this moment. Dozens of men, women, old and young were tied up and squatted on the ground in 2s and 3s. There were also death warriors from the Misty Rain Tower watching around, and anyone who made a little movement would be killed on the spot, which frightened them so much that their faces turned pale and they dared not make any noise. It was not until Wei Hong stepped into this courtyard that everyone begged as if they had been pardoned. Sir, I am Zai Aliu from the East Street branch. Why are you detaining us? Sir, please understand, we are all your own people. Everyone begged for mercy. Pairs of eyes looked at him hopefully. Wei Hong took the booklet from Luan Zioki, opened it and looked at a young man and asked, Li Fushan, there are 5 people in your family, including you. Why did you bring 2 outsiders? Son-in-law, this is my fiancée and her brother. The young man kowtowed desperately, we will be married soon, and she is also a member of my Li family. Please have mercy and let me take them away. What about you? Wei Hong looked at a middle-aged man again and sneered, Li Weihong, why did you bring all 4 of your neighbors? Master Wei, I can't be ungrateful. The middle-aged man stammered, this is my cousin from the same village. He took good care of me in the past. It's really. Please, Master Wei, please give us a way out and take us all away. After that, he also kowtowed desperately. Soon, dozens of people in the whole yard were kowtowing desperately. Wei Hong looked up at the sky and closed his eyes without saying a word. He asked himself if he encountered such a situation, he would probably do the same. After all, he also had people who needed to repay their gratitude. But this is not a reason to break the rules. Any rules that are set must never be changed. If you bring a few more people, and he brings a few more people, eventually more than 200 families will become thousands of families. Even if Wei Hong is very capable, he can't take people away quietly. I'm sorry, everyone. Wei Hong sighed and said coldly, it's not easy to take your whole family away this time. If anyone wants to break the rules, I will never agree. Why? The young man Li Fushan asked angrily, it's just 2 more people, and you don't have to pay any price. Why don't you want to? Can you just watch them die here? You want to take 2 more, what about the others? If everyone takes a few more, what will happen in the end? Wei Hong asked coldly, you have people you want to take away, and your fiancé also has people. Do you want to take her friends with you? Do you really think that Wei owes you something? When will it be your turn to do favors for my kindness? Li Fushan was speechless. Wei Hong said with a cold look, you should be glad that you didn't spread this everywhere. 7 families have been wiped out because of their talkativeness. I will spare your lives today. I will release you after everyone has evacuated. If you don't want to die, shut up. After saying that, he turned around and left. Everyone's faces were full of pleading, sadness, and regret, but he was stone-hearted and never moved. Chapter 268, The Ministry of Justice's Prison, Take Steady Steps. At 3:30 p.m., everyone in the Wei mansion began to evacuate in batches. There was an underground passage leading to the surrounding area in the mansion. They only needed to reach the next secret base from underground, and then enter the underground passage to quickly leave the capital. Luan Zioki personally followed the Yan'anyu Tower's death squad throughout the whole process, and there was no mistake. After all, facing the masked and murderous swordsman, the King Chamber of Commerce and the Wei Mansion servants discovered that their son-in-law was actually a hidden person, and there was no one who knew how many forces were hidden behind him. Who would dare to deliberately make trouble at this time? Overnight, 800 or 900 people evacuated cleanly. They were all settled in a farm near Yan'ai Villa, which was controlled by Yan'anyu Tower's death squad, and stored a large amount of food and medicinal materials, enough for these people to survive safely for a while. As for Wei Hong himself, he did not withdraw from the capital of the gods. Not to mention that he had many things to do, just because he had not yet completed the things he promised to the 10,000 poison sect, he could not get away. Early in the morning, Wei Hong and Luan Zioki returned to a small courtyard near the Wei mansion, boiled a large pot of meat soup, and then ate it with hunger. Finally, we sent the people away. Luan Zioki muttered, now that the family is outside, no matter what happens in the capital, we can rest assured. Not bad. Wei Hong nodded with satisfaction. The reason why he deliberately made such a big scene for this evacuation was actually to test the execution ability of Yan'anyu Tower. If the strength is not good enough, it can be improved slowly. But if the execution ability is not good, it is really hopeless. Fortunately, judging from the situation last night, the Yan'anyu Tower's death squad is still good. They perfectly executed the orders given by Wei Hong, and the degree of completion is beyond imagination. Well done. Wei Hong praised again. Luan Zioki said proudly, now 70% of the people in Yan'anyu Tower are in the farm. On the one hand, they can protect them, and on the other hand, they can prevent people from making trouble inside. Don't worry. As for the remaining 30%, they are still in the capital of the gods, waiting for orders at any time. They can always help. When are you going to withdraw? No hurry. Wei Hong said while eating the broth, you have another task in the next few days, which is to infiltrate the prison of the Ministry of Justice and use all means to find out the situation inside. Yes. Luan Zioki's eyes lit up and he became interested again. Isn't it for the purpose of studying hard every day to show your skills? Last night was just a small test. The new order issued by Wei Hong made him full of energy. Although he didn't know why he was going to the prison of the Ministry of Justice, it was also a challenge. Don't take it lightly. Collect some intelligence outside first and then infiltrate the prison. Wei Hong raised his eyes and reminded, our people have been trained with great difficulty. Losing one of them is heartbreaking. Everything must be done steadily. Understood. Luan Zioki nodded solemnly. In the next few days, the elite death squads of Yan'anyu Tower lurking in Chengdu, led by Luan Zioki, began to infiltrate the prison of the Ministry of Justice in all directions. They first collected information about the prison of the Ministry of Justice in various ways. From the information of the jailers, garrison soldiers, masters of the Ministry of Justice, etc., to the map of the prison, patrol time, and mealtime, they were all checked clearly. Then, Yan'anyu Tower began to infiltrate the prison. The death squads gradually figured out the situation in the prison by pretending to be prisoners and jailers, and stacks of information were also passed back to Wei Hong. He couldn't help frowning secretly as he looked through the information. The Ministry of Justice prison is the largest prison in the entire capital, much larger than the Dali Temple and other prisons. It is divided into 4 major prison areas, A, B, C, and D. Among them, the A-level prison area is the most mysterious and the most difficult to approach. The other 3 prison areas have been explored, but the A-level prison area has been unable to be approached. The Yan'anyu Tower's death warriors are afraid of alarming the Ministry of Justice masters, so they naturally dare not be too anxious. The Great Zhou dynasty was established for 800 years. The Ministry of Justice's heavenly prison has been hijacked and forced to break into more than 1,000 times, which happens several times a year on average. It can be said to be the most dangerous and most tightly guarded place in the entire God's capital. In order to ensure the safety of the heavenly prison, the Ministry of Justice has trained a group of very powerful masters to be secretly stationed in the prison. Once something happens, They can respond immediately. If they encounter a strong enemy, the patrol camp and the Imperial Guards can also come to help within an instant of time. Over the years, except for 3 times when the Xiantian realm took action to successfully hijack people, no one has been able to break through the layers of defense in the heavenly prison. Many powerful demons have been detained in it and have difficulty escaping. Luan Zioki silently summarized and analyzed. Wei Hong's face suddenly became extremely solemn. No wonder the Wandu sect was not sure that they could take back the fundamental law from the heavenly prison. Obviously, their target was in the Class A prison, which was the most tightly sealed place. Do you know how many masters are suppressing the Class A prison? Wei Hong asked. 4 in the refining organ realm, 12 in the refining bone realm, and 38 in the refining blood realm. Luan Zioki replied in a deep voice, but these are just the guards on the surface. The Ministry of Justice must have hidden people and horses, and the prison is full of traps. It is really not a good place. Wei Hong had to agree with this statement. How could a place with strict security and a large number of martial arts masters be a good place? No one knows how many strong people are hidden inside. Once you get trapped, the consequences will be very serious. If he didn't owe a big favor to the 10,000 poison sect, he would never get involved in such a place. And now that he has agreed to help Zhang Yuanqi, he can only bite the bullet and find a way to solve this matter. In fact, with my strength, even if I break in and kill, I should be able to easily break through the prison of the Ministry of Justice. After all, as long as they don't have the Xiantian realm guarding, the refining organ realm is nothing but a chicken and a dog to me. A small place like the prison is most suitable for poisoning. Even the Xiantian realm will be in trouble if they inhale my toxins. Wei Hong thought about it for a while and didn't have much fear. After all, his foundation has gradually strengthened, and not just any cat or dog can scare him. Except for the palace, he can go anywhere in the world now. How about using the ghost boy to investigate? A bold idea suddenly popped up in Wei Hong's mind. The art of controlling ghosts is also a rare thing in the Great Zhou dynasty. Even if there are many masters in the prison of the Ministry of Justice, they cannot be seen by the naked eye. Moreover, the deep part of the prison is filled with a gloomy air, which is just right for the ghost boy to act. If everything goes well, there may be no need to break in personally. The ghost boy can bring out the fundamental law of the 10,000 poison sect, right? No hurry, no hurry. Wei Hong murmured, the 10,000 poison sect will not act so quickly. They will definitely take advantage of the 6th prince's forcing the palace. It will take at least a month. Let the ghost boy slowly become stronger for a while. Chapter 269 The Ghost Boy shows his power, a fellow traveler. Early autumn should be a season of clear skies, warm and pleasant weather. However, the capital of the gods and even the entire Great Zhou seemed to be in dire straits. The plague in the capital was still raging, and tens of thousands of corpses were pulled outside the city to be burned every day. The people were frightened and in a state of panic. Gradually, the news that the new emperor was critically ill and the 6th prince called on the heroes of the world to clear the emperor's side began to spread among the people. Maybe someone was fanning the flames, or maybe the movement of various forces mobilizing troops was too loud. In short, the news was not concealed after all, and it became known to the world for a while. In early October, the rebellion army returned to the court. Under the leadership of General Mang, hundreds of thousands of troops set up camp directly outside the city. The army stretched for dozens of miles, and the sound of daily training was earth-shaking. As a result, the capital of the gods was shrouded in a cloud of war. The once bustling and noisy capital has now become dead silent. The people are all hiding in their homes and trembling. They dare not go out unless necessary. There are only the hurried figures of the corpse collection team in the streets and alleys, and the various ceremonies and chanting of the 3 immortals, and the believers kneeling and praying. The whole city of God seems to be covered with the shadow of despair. Everyone is in a state of extreme depression. People die every moment. The huge city is almost turned into purgatory on earth. October 7th. Wei Hong finally received news from the 10,000 poison sect again. Zhang Yuanqi sent someone to contact with a secret message and agreed to meet outside the prison of the Ministry of Justice that night. So he took the opportunity to go out to collect corpses and appeared at the crematorium outside the city again. This place is still guarded by the patrol camp, and corpses are burned every day. Batches of corpses are constantly transported from all over the city and thrown into the fire. The thick black smoke accompanied by bursts of stench makes it almost impossible to breathe. In the distance, the tents of the anti-rebellion army are dark. Hundreds of thousands of troops lined up outside the city. The neat shouts of killing during training were deafening. The invisible momentum kept rolling over, shaking the soldiers of the patrol camp to a livid look. The atmosphere became even more depressing at this moment. The corpse collection team worked silently. Wei Hong took advantage of the fact that no one was paying attention to cover his face with his sleeves, pretending to wipe his sweat, and made a high-frequency humming sound that ordinary people could not hear. Soon, 9 ghost children drilled out from the ground. Their faces were pale and hideous, their eyes were evil and fierce, and they used their hands and feet at a fast speed. In a few flashes, they rushed to Wei Hong. Woo woo woo. They let out a creepy and strange laugh. Their hands and feet turned into black smoke and wrapped around him. Their bloody mouths bit his flesh and skin hard. Wei Hong's invulnerable skin membrane could not stop the tearing, and in an instant, many bloody wounds appeared on his body. Of course, outsiders could not see this scene. People with immortal eyes could only feel the coldness around them. In addition, Wei Hong controlled the contraction of his skin to stop the bleeding, so no one noticed his miserable condition, let alone the scene of the 9 ghost children attacking their master. HMPH. Wei Hong snorted coldly, and his blood boiled violently. A high-frequency thundering lion roar came from his throat. Outsiders could not hear a single sound, but the invisible sound wave swept out and made the 9 ghost children scream. Then he slapped a deerskin bag on his waist with his left hand, and held 3 purple sun concentration talismans in his hand. The invisible hot energy swept out, and the 9 ghost children immediately remembered the days of torture in the past. Woo woo woo. They hurriedly fled a few feet away. All of them had a strong look of fear and terror on their faces, and they dared not offend at all. Obviously, they had recognized that this was their master who had not seen him for more than a month. Return. Wei Hong waved his sleeves again. The 9 ghost children immediately turned into black smoke and disappeared from his waist pocket, and their original locust tree puppets were placed inside. Not bad, not bad. Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction. More than a month ago, the 9 ghost children could only deal with martial artists in the blood-refining realm, and their methods were nothing more than confusing, binding, and covering their eyes with ghosts. If the opponent does not have the most masculine and most powerful methods to restrain ghosts. With the 9 ghost children joining forces, the strong men in the early stage of the bone-refining realm will be in trouble. However, after more than a month of wanton devouring of wandering souls, their strength has improved by leaps and bounds. So much so that they dared to take the initiative to attack Wei Hong just now. If he did not have the means to restrain them, plus the results of long-term domestication, I am afraid that Wei Hong would have to pay a huge price to deal with them today. Good guy, now I am afraid that any ghost child can deal with an early stage of the organ refining realm, right? Wei Hong secretly smacked his lips. If the ghost children absorb for another 10 or 8 years, I am afraid that they will cultivate an existence that even the immortals behind the 3 immortal sects fear, right? In this way, ghosts are not completely without advantages. At least it is much easier to improve their strength than human warriors. What are you daydreaming about? Let's go. Deng Haisheng had just thrown the corpse on the wheelbarrow into the fire, and turned around to urge, "You've been tired all day, go back and have a drink." "No, I have something else to do." Wei Hong refused casually. After returning to the city and saying goodbye to the corpse collection team, he turned and walked into a small alley. When he came out again, he had disguised himself as a middle-aged strong man in a strong suit, and walked straight to the Ministry of Justice's Xianliao in the night. At this point, the streets near the area were empty, and the atmosphere was very cold. Wei Hong's eyes swept across the wall on the street. He quickly recognized the secret graffiti logo of the 10,000 Poison Sect. Following the logo, he soon found a very remote courtyard in a small alley diagonally opposite the Xianliao. Dong dong dong. After knocking on the door of the small courtyard was opened a crack. A pair of turbid eyes stared at him for a long time, until Wei Hong made a special gesture of the 10,000 Poison Sect, and the other party made way. As expected, there are a large number of masters hidden in the small courtyard. An oil lamp was burning in the main room. Jiang Yuinke, Medicine Granny, 2 middle-aged men, and a beautiful middle-aged woman were sitting together to warm themselves by the fire. The others were hidden in the darkness. He could vaguely hear the rustling sounds of many poisonous insects. "Come, have some tea." Jiang Yuinke handed over a cup of hot tea with a smile. This cup of tea was turbid green. It was the poisonous tea made by the 10,000 poison sect with special poisonous insects and poisonous grasses. Most people would die if they smelled it, but they could drink it for a long time. Wei Hong faced the scrutiny of the crowd with a calm expression. He found a chair and sat down, took the tea and drank it all. Everyone present couldn't help but change their color slightly. You know, even they had to drink this kind of poisonous tea in small sips, but this guy could drink it in one gulp without changing his expression? What a powerful poison skill. Everyone looked at each other, and the resistance and xenophobia on their faces immediately subsided a lot. Since they were fellow travelers, they naturally felt a sense of identification and closeness in their hearts. In addition, Zhang Yuanke admired him very much, so everyone also regarded Wei Hong as half of their own. Chapter 270, Alerting the Enemy by Making Trouble, Arrogant and Ignorant. How many people did you bring? 5 people in the refining organs realm and 12 people in the refining bone realm, all elite. When will we start? 7 p.m. Wei Hong and Zhang Yuanke were asking and answering each other. The general situation had been explained clearly. Combined with the intelligence he had collected before, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was indeed risky for such a small number of people to break into the Xianlao prison, but they were all poison masters, and they had poisonous insects and snakes to cooperate with them. With the unfathomable guy Wei Hong here, there was no need to panic. There is still some time now. Let me explore the situation in the Xianlao prison first. Wei Hong drank another cup of poison tea. Then he stood up and swept the things on the table to the ground. Then he took out a number of locust tree puppets from the deerskin pocket on his waist, carefully arranged them, and then cut his palm with a heartbreaking knife and poured them on them, and kept muttering to himself. Looking at his weird scene, everyone was stunned, and looked at him as if he was looking at a fool. Only Zhang Yuanke's face changed drastically, and his voice was trembling with fear. Ghost controlling technique? Are you a cultivator? No. It's just a fake ghost control technique. Wei Hong answered casually. Fake ghost control technique? What is this? Elder, what are you talking about? Why is this kid talking so weird? Everyone couldn't help but ask. Wei Hong was too lazy to answer. He raised his hand and waved it, and 9 ghost children revealed their true bodies and lay on everyone. Although they couldn't see the ghost children with their mortal eyes, they clearly felt that there was an invisible and cold binding force, which was fiercely wrapping themselves tightly, as if there were pairs of ghost hands wandering around. Hiss! Everyone gasped in fear, and all of them couldn't help but feel their scalps numb and their bodies stiffened. Now, no matter how stupid they were, they knew what ghost control technique meant. The helper Zhang Yuanke found was not only a master of poison, but also clearly controlled unknown power. For a moment, everyone looked at him with some complexity, envy, and all. Go! Wei Hong raised his hand again and waved. With a series of awkward syllables coming out of his mouth, the 9 ghost children immediately disappeared from the spot and went straight to the depths of the prison to explore. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief after feeling the cold breath disappear, and at the same time, they couldn't help showing surprise on their faces. Good, good. I was worried that there was an ambush in the prison, but now I feel relieved. Medicine Granny clapped her hands and laughed. Yes, if we had known there was such a method, we wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble to collect intelligence. Awesome, I didn't expect there was such a method in the world. Fake ghost control technique? Incredible. Everyone was talking about it. In their hearts, they were even more grateful and afraid. They were grateful that the man in front of them was one of their own. If he was an enemy, I'm afraid he could destroy the entire Wandu sect alone. After all, the other party is good at using poison and has the technique of controlling ghosts. Just the scene of the ghost children restraining everyone just now was enough to make everyone terrified. If Wei Hong took the opportunity to attack, I'm afraid everyone would be killed instantly. After all, the life and death of masters in a battle is only a matter of a breath. They really couldn't think of any way to escape. Facing the eager eyes of the crowd, Wei Hong had no intention of making friends with these people. He just sat aside and drank tea, quietly waiting for the ghost children to investigate. A cup of tea passed in a flash. The ghost children finally came back. Wei Hong squinted his eyes and listened to their report. He couldn't help but chuckled and said, 9 refining organs. 9? Impossible. Zhang Yuanke was frightened and his face changed suddenly. The others also looked ugly and solemn. From the information they learned, there were at most 4 refining organs in the Sky Prison, and even if there was hidden strength, It was impossible for 5 more to suddenly appear. You must know that a strong man in the refining organs is enough to dominate a region. If the innate is not revealed, the refining organs is the strongest fighting force in the Great Zhou. How could 9 of these top warriors suddenly appear, and all of them were guarding the sky prison at night? Unless this was a premeditated ambush? Zhang Yuanke said angrily, our plan must have been leaked. Is the other party waiting for us? Damn it, is there a traitor? Everyone was shocked. Wei Hong waved his hand and said, it shouldn't be a trap. If there is a trap, the surrounding area has been quietly guarded by heavy troops. It is probably because we revealed some flaws when searching for information about the heavenly prison in the early stage, so that the other party subconsciously began to impose martial law. Yes, that makes sense. Indeed. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. However, the 9 refining organs are terrifying enough. Once opponents of this level fight, it is simply impossible to have a quick victory. Now that the number is at a disadvantage, it is even more troublesome. If the time is delayed for a long time, what should we do if the patrol camp comes to help? Should we postpone it? Medicine Granny asked tentatively. No need. Zhang Yuanke sneered sinisterly, the 6th prince will force the palace tonight. By then, the palace will be in chaos and the heavenly prison will not be able to be managed. Even if we pay a huge price, we must take the things back. Yes. Everyone nodded in agreement with a firm look. Obviously, everyone was prepared to die. Don't panic. Wei Hong said calmly, as long as Xianqian doesn't make a move, you will definitely be able to take back the fundamental law tonight. Thank you for your good words. Zhang Yuanke forced a smile. The others also looked hesitant. They didn't know whether to laugh at Wei Hong's bragging or his arrogance and ignorance. The opponents were the 9 top masters of the Ministry of Justice. With this kind of strength, it would not be a problem to sweep a top sect. There are many traps in the sky prison. Who dares to say that he can definitely take back the fundamental law safely without Xianqian realm? Wei Hong was too lazy to say anything more. Everything should be based on facts. If he can't successfully break into the sky prison with 5 people in the refining Zhang realm and get the things, how can he be worthy of his daily hard work and practice, and how can he be worthy of his life of cheating? Time passed by every second. In the dead silence of the night approaching the 7th quarter of the evening, the shouts of killing finally rang out as expected. The earth-shaking shouts of killing and the collision of swords came from the city walls and the palace. Everyone sat on the daoyate and continued to drink tea. At this time, a disciple of the 10,000 poison sect came in quickly from outside, knelt on one knee and said, Elder, thousands of black-clothed people rushed out from the major families and rushed straight to the palace and the various halls of the 3 immortal sect to kill. In addition, the rebels outside the city have also begun to attack the city, and the patrol camp is resisting on the city wall. The battle is very fierce. Haha, these families are really fence-sitters. They will turn to whoever gives them the most benefits. It may not be just for the benefit. The new emperor has been controlled by the 3 immortals sect. At this time, they may be trying to clear the court. Who cares why, just fight. Everyone sneered. Wei Hong couldn't help but sigh secretly in his heart. I don't know how many people will die after tonight. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271. A great chaos breaks out, breaking into the prison. Dark night. The deafening shouts of killing broke the silence of the night. Countless people went from despair and depression to panic and anxiety. They hid in their homes and trembled, not daring to go out. Many people bravely looked out the window. There were shadows of people on the street and frequent military movements. Occasionally, you can see a large number of soldiers fighting on the street, and a large number of warriors attacking the 3 immortal sect altar. The huge city of gods was in chaos from inside to outside. This war is much crazier than the last battle for the throne, and the scale is much larger. In such a chaotic situation outside, even some martial artists who think they are quite powerful dare not go out casually, and few dare to take advantage of the fire to rob, kill and plunder like last time. There is only endless anxiety and waiting. Let's do it. Beside the prison, Wei Hong said indifferently, the fighting in the palace and outside the city is so fierce. Even if we make a big fuss here, No one will come to support us. Yes, let's do it. Jiang Yuanqi waved his sleeves and flew towards the prison like a rock. Seeing this, the others also rushed out. There were 5 people in the refining organ realm and 12 in the refining bone realm from the 10,000 poison sect. Together with Wei Hong, there were 18 people in total. They were like ghosts forcing their way into the prison. The patrolling soldiers were already nervous because of the turmoil. Seeing someone forcibly breaking in, they quickly drew their swords and surrounded and killed them. Go. Wei Hong raised his hand and waved it. Before anyone else could react, 9 ghost children had already pounced on these soldiers in an instant. They ignored the soldiers' body armor protection. Ghost hands climbed onto their hands, feet, necks, and eyes, and their bloody mouths directly bit their throats. These soldiers screamed miserably. They couldn't see, couldn't breathe, their hands and feet were bound, and they could only wave their swords in despair and fear. Puff, puff. They started to kill each other for no apparent reason. Soon, a row of soldiers fell in a pool of blood. This scene frightened the people of the 10,000 poison sect. Needless to say, everyone knew that the inexplicable changes of these soldiers just now were not caused by insanity, but were killed by invisible and intangible ghosts. The ghost children now have a variety of methods. Not only can they bind the enemy, but the ghost claws can also tear the enemy's throat, suck the opponent's blood with a bloody mouth, and the ghost hands can cover the ears, mouth and nose. If the opponent has no means to restrain the ghosts, the ghost children can easily kill the opponent in thousands of ways. Not bad. Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction, waved his hand, and 9 ghost children broke into the prison. Then bursts of screams and wails came from the prison. Jiang Yuanqi and his companions stepped into the cold and eerie prison with strange faces. They saw the bodies of jailers everywhere, and the blood had soaked deep into the prison. The prisoners in the cells on both sides were already dumbfounded. There are ghosts. There are ghosts. Damn, what's going on? The prison was robbed. Let me out. I am from the Jiangnan Green Forest Alliance. I can help you. The prisoners were either terrified or surprised, and their eyes were full of excitement. However, Wei Hong and his companions ignored these ordinary prisoners and went straight to the Class A prison area, which was their goal. You don't know how to live or die? You can force your way into the prison of the Ministry of Justice? Come and die. A loud shout came from the depths of the prison. Then there was a roar like a dragon's roar and a tiger's roar. Along with the shrill screams of the ghost children, it was obvious that a fight had broken out in the Class A prison area, and someone on the other side had used the extremely yang and extremely strong martial arts to restrain ghosts, so that the ghost children who were killing all around suffered a setback for the first time. Haha. Wei Hong was not surprised at all. The prison of the Ministry of Justice is always cold and gloomy. If there is no means to restrain ghosts, I am afraid that there will be no peace on weekdays. When everyone rushed into the Class A prison area, they found that more than 10 masters had surrounded it. One of them, an old man in black clothes, performed a set of fierce and violent boxing techniques, constantly bombarding the surrounding void, and the shrill screams of the ghost children could be heard from time to time. Others may not be able to see what the scene is, but Wei Hong clearly saw that all 9 ghost children were forced to shrink into the corner by the surging blood of the opponent. Every time the old man punched, the extremely yang internal force would cause considerable damage to the ghost children. Late stage of the refining organ realm. Wei Hong frowned secretly. Jiang Yuanqi also saw the clues. His face changed and he looked around silently. He found that more than 10 masters appeared in the back. Obviously, the Ministry of Justice was already accustomed to dealing with prisoner robbery. It made the most correct response plan in a few moves and blocked them here. Which way are you from? This is not a place where anyone can run wild. A middle-aged jailer sneered. Hold them. Jiang Yuanqi roared and rushed forward. He had already found out where the fundamental method of the 10,000 Poison Sutra was. At this time, he just needed to break through. Therefore, he gave an order and the people of the 10,000 Poison sect used their own methods. Swish, swish, swish. Woo woo woo. Large bags of poison powder were sprinkled around. At the same time, someone blew a bone flute. In a strange humming sound, countless poisonous snakes, poisonous ants, scorpions, and centipedes emerged from the darkness around them and rushed directly towards the jailers. Damn, the 10,000 Poison sect. How could it be them? For a moment, the Class A prison area was in chaos. The jailers all retreated in panic, holding their breath while swinging their knives to block any approaching poisonous snakes and insects. Occasionally, they had to guard against the poison needles shot by the masters of the 10,000 Poison sect. Everyone was in a mess. However, it is obviously not easy for Zhang Yuanqi to break through the obstruction in front. The terrain of the Class A prison area is narrow, and a passage is crowded with more than a dozen masters of the Ministry of Justice. No matter how amazing his poison skills are, it is impossible for him to break through the encirclement that the other party has prepared for a while. After all, a martial arts master can still hold his breath for a cup of tea. The wind whistled under the waving of their robes, and it was difficult for the poison powder to touch the skin. Therefore, the means of the 10,000 Poison sect at this moment can only delay the enemy. If you really want to break through the obstacles quickly and rush over, it is still very difficult. Get out of the way. Wei Hong shouted loudly, and his figure crashed like a cannonball. His left hand instantly turned into colorful black, and the palm of turning clouds and seas turned into a trail of after images, and fiercely blasted forward. How dare you! Get out of the way! The 5 powerful masters in the refining organ realm in front shouted together. A series of fist winds and foot shadows greeted him. Wei Hong's palms flew and his internal force blasted and killed, fighting against 5 strong men in the refining organ realm alone without losing the upper hand. After a few moves, the 5 men spit out a mouthful of black blood. Chapter 272, Overwhelming and Unstoppable. The internal force is poisonous? Such a terrifying poison skill. Be careful, swallow the detoxification pill quickly. The faces of several jailers in the refining organ realm changed drastically. As they retreated step by step, they stuffed detoxification pills into their mouth frantically, barely mobilizing their internal force to suppress the poison in their bodies. However, Wei Hong's attainments in the 10,000 Poison palm were superb, and any casual attack could carry astonishing toxicity. No matter how they suppressed it, their combat power was greatly disturbed. The strongest old man in the late stage of refining organ was very angry. He took a deep breath, raised his hand and sent out a fierce fist wind, crushing directly over like a dead tree and rotten wood. Get out! Wei Hong went up without fear. The ultimate skill of the cloud-turning sea palm, the 1,000-layer wave, erupted strongly, and layers of palm shadows swept in like waves. Combined with the sharp characteristics of the Zhengjin bone refining technique, each palm wind was full of fierce breath. Boom boom boom. The two of them fought with fists and palms for dozens of moves. With his strength at the early stage of the bone refining realm, Wei Hong crushed the old man at the late stage of the bone refining realm and made him retreat step by step. In the end, he blasted him away with one palm. Mr. Li. Be careful! Everyone exclaimed and took him. The old man spat out a mouthful of black blood, and his expression suddenly became much weaker. It was obvious that he was not only injured in the head-on collision, but also the poison had penetrated into his internal organs. If he continued to fight, the other party would die. Wei Hong stepped forward. He forced them to retreat step by step. When the jailers retreated to a branch passage, Zhang Yuanqi spoke slowly. Everyone, I am not here to rob the prisoners from the 10,000 Poison sect, but only to take back a secret book of fundamental law left here by my senior master in his early years. I will leave after taking the things, how about it? Humph. The expressions of several jailers at the refining organ realm eased a little. Although he still refused to give in, his body subconsciously stood on the side of the forked passage, and did not dare to stop Zhang Yuanqi from rushing to the deepest part of the prison. Seeing this, Wei Hong did not continue to take action. He just stood there silently and shocked everyone. With his poison skills and 9 ghost children hiding in the dark, he was confident that he could kill all the people present in less than a cup of tea. But he came here just to repay the favor. There is no need to fight too hard. It's good to achieve the goal. After all, rabbits can bite when they are anxious. What if these jailers are forced to go crazy and fight desperately, and use some unexpected means to drag the people of the 10,000 Poison sect to die together? So when Zhang Yuanqi said that he would not take any prisoners away, the two sides formed a tacit understanding and began to confront each other. As long as no prisoners are lost, they will not be considered dereliction of duty. Wait until the people of the 10,000 Poison sect withdraw and report that the enemy has been successfully repelled. So why do you have to fight? Isn't it good to live? Hehe. At this time, a sinister and strange laugh came from the cell next to him. I didn't expect that there would be a genius in the 10,000 Poison sect. At such a young age, He has practiced a 10,000 poison palm to such a shocking level, and he is also proficient in the art of controlling ghosts. I admire you, I admire you. Wei Hong raised his eyes and glanced over. He saw a man curled up in the shadows. His hands and feet were all tied up with iron chains, his body was dirty, and his face was covered by dirty long hair. The other party had a pair of vicissitudes, as if he saw through the world. Wei Hong looked at him for a moment, and couldn't help but feel a little uneasy, as if he was being stared at by a hunter. I am not a member of the 10,000 Poison sect. I am here just to repay a favor. Wei Hong said hoarsely. No matter why you come. The sloppy man twisted his neck and said, Boy, save me, how about I give you a great fortune? Not interested. Wei Hong refused lightly. You bastard, you dare to refuse. The sloppy man roared like an angry lion. Do you know who I am? I'm just a stray dog, why do I need to know my name? Wei Hong sneered. The sloppy man was immediately as if his life was being strangled. He gasped for air, his eyes flashed with a nervous light, and finally laughed crazily. Ha ha ha, you're right, you're just a stray dog, I hate you. With a long howl to the sky, the terrifying sound waves immediately swept across the four directions. Not only did the prisoners in the surrounding prison spit blood, but even the masters of the 10,000 Poison sect and the jailers groaned, covered their ears in pain, and almost fainted one by one. The most miserable were the 9 ghost children. The sloppy man used a sound wave skill similar to the lion's roar skill, which was extremely masculine and strong, and was the most restrained against evil spirits. A roar almost shattered them. The ghost children all screamed and wailed in pain, and their ghost energy dissipated a lot. Come back. Wei Hong raised his hand. The ghost children turned into black smoke and drilled back into the deerskin pocket on his waist. It seemed that it would be difficult for them to recover without consuming some blood. Ha ha ha. The sloppy man was still venting madly. Wei Hong was too lazy to look at him anymore. Maybe he had been very glorious in the past, and maybe saving him would be of great benefit. But so what? It was not worth taking the risk to save people for a small favor, and who knew if he would bite him back after being rescued? So, he should just stay here honestly. When the jailers saw that Wei Hong had no intention of saving people, the tense atmosphere suddenly relaxed a lot, which eased the tense atmosphere of confrontation. After a while, Zhang Yuanka came back. He had quietly copied down the secret code of the fundamental law engraved somewhere in the sky prison without missing a word, and had destroyed the secret code. In this way, this trip is considered a complete success. When he nodded to everyone, all the masters of the 10,000 Poison sect were ecstatic, but they were also extremely alert, fearing that they would be blocked at the last minute. Goodbye, everyone. Zhang Yuanka waved his hand and slowly retreated with his men. Wei Hong stood there without moving, and the jailers were all too frightened to move. He did not turn around and leave until everyone from the 10,000 Poison sect left the Class A prison area. Who is this guy? When did such a strong man appear in the world? From what he said, he is not from the 10,000 Poison sect. Damn it, if the 10,000 Poison sect had not found this person to help, they would never let them leave alive today. The jailers gritted their teeth in anger. Say less, do you really want to risk your lives? The old man in black coughed lightly inside. They are clearly showing mercy. We just need to get a salary and get our job done. If we really risk our lives, we will all be dead. What Mr. Lee taught us is that it's a good thing they didn't take the prisoners away. We can report to our superiors and get our job done by successfully repelling the enemy. Yet, we didn't expect that our heavenly prison would be so lively when the 6th prince forced the emperor to abdicate. It's really an unprovoked disaster. Everyone sighed at the same time, and finally it all turned into a sigh. Chapter 273 Seek wealth and honor through risk, and try to seize the chance to become an immortal. Smoothly withdraw from the prison. Wei Hong and the people of the 10,000 Poison sect all breathed a sigh of relief. This operation was so smooth and there were no casualties. They also successfully recaptured the fundamental law of the 10,000 Poison Sutra. It was really perfect. Everyone. Wei Hong was too lazy to ask Zhang Yuanka what he did in the depths of the prison. He said casually, I have repaid the favor I owed to the 10,000 Poison sect. It can be regarded as fulfilling my mission. Thank you. Zhang Yuanka didn't say much. The two looked at each other, nodded, and turned to go their separate ways. The people of the 10,000 Poison sect must continue to hide, or escape from the capital and return to southern Xinjiang immediately. After all, their most important task has been completed, and other things are no longer important. Wei Hong is different. He has other plans. After the people of the 10,000 Poison sect disappeared at the corner of the street, he also disappeared in the dark night like a ghost. When he appeared again, he was already on a high-rise building near the inner city. This place has been reserved by the Misty Rain Tower. Luan Zioki led dozens of death warriors to guard the top of the tall building. When Wei Hong arrived, everyone saluted with a solemn look on their faces. Greetings to the Poison King. Yes. Wei Hong nodded slightly, and his eyes swept across the tall buildings around him. There were quite a few strong men hiding in various places to watch the excitement, but there were not many who took people to occupy a place with such a big fanfare as him. When everyone saw his eyes, they couldn't help but subconsciously avoid showing weakness. Unknowingly, Wei Hong has become the top of the pyramid in this huge capital. In the past, he had to avoid major conflicts from afar, but today, facing the grand occasion of the sixth prince forcing the palace, he dared to bring people to watch the battle here. It must be said that the situation has really changed over time. While others were speculating on his identity, Wei Hong had already set his sights on the battle between the palace and the outer city. From here, it can be vaguely seen that the two battlefields have already been decided. Hundreds of thousands of troops from the outer city went to suppress the rebels and easily broke through the walls of the patrol camp. They rushed all the way into the capital of the gods. The shouting figures of the army could be seen in the streets and alleys. Although the walls of the palace were guarded by the imperial guards, they were difficult to break. But when General Meng led his troops to arrive, and with the masters of the major families, the result of this battle was self-evident. The various Sanxin sect altars had been completely destroyed. Countless Sanxin sect believers fell in a pool of blood. The scales of victory in this dispute seemed to have tipped towards the sixth prince, but Wei Hong knew very well that the real struggle had not yet begun, and the number of people who died now was just an appetizer. It's inconvenient to watch the battle here. Do we want to enter the inner city? Luan Zioki asked tentatively. No need. Wei Hong shook his head and said, there will definitely be a fight between cultivators later. It's easy to be affected if we enter the inner city. We'll be fine here. Cultivators. Everyone smacked their lips secretly, all a little at a loss. The average age of these young men and women in the Misty Rain Tower is only 14 or 15 years old. Although they have grown tall and strong after practicing martial arts and have disguised themselves as middle-aged people, their minds and knowledge are still those of young people. At first glance, they heard the immortal cultivators and saw the crazy fighting tonight. They are afraid that they will never forget this scene in their lives, right? Here it comes. Wei Hong suddenly murmured. From a distance, a black banner, a flying sword, a gourd, and a cattail leaf fan suddenly appeared above the palace. Boom. They were controlled by an unknown mysterious force and collided wildly above the palace. Every time they raised a wave of air, it was enough to destroy the world. The inner city was immediately devastated. Some of the 4 magic weapons were scattered casually, and the aftermath of various battles fell, which was enough to collapse a large area of houses into ruins, and hundreds of feet deep pits were smashed on the ground from time to time. Countless soldiers, martial artists, and civilians suffered an unprovoked disaster. Even the powerful imperial guards became like ants at this moment. Luan Zioki and others finally understood why Wei Hong did not go into the inner city to watch the battle. It was the center of the storm. If he got closer, he might be looking for death. Sir? Luan Zioki asked curiously, where's the cultivator? I don't know. Wei Hong shook his head and said, how can we guess the existence of this level? In that case, why are we still staying here? Luan Zioki was puzzled. If we don't evacuate early at this time, won't we be unlucky if we are affected? No hurry, no hurry. Wei Hong can leave any time he wants. But he always thinks about the spiritual energy in the palace. With his spiritual pupils, he can clearly see that because of the operation of the 3 immortal sects' national teacher, the luck of the great Zhou royal family is plummeting, and the concentration of spiritual energy in the palace is getting higher and higher. He can see the spiritual energy particles soaring into the sky at a glance. If he can absorb some, can't he step into the realm of ki training? Even if he can't successfully practice ki, it's okay to condense a few strands of spiritual energy to open the storage bag seized in Kyandao Lake, right? There must be something good inside. Wouldn't it be great if we could open it? Seeing the 4 magic weapons fighting more and more fiercely, the roar sounded like thunder. The air waves sweeping around could be clearly felt from a few miles away. Many high-rise buildings were directly overturned, and large pieces of thunder and fireballs fell to the ground, causing a fire. The entire God City has long been turned into purgatory. Countless people ran in fear, like ants facing the power of heaven, desperate and powerless. Sir, retreat. Luan Zioki was secretly anxious. If we don't leave, no one can leave. You retreat first. Wei Hong finally had enough of the show. He said expressionlessly, you take your people back to the farm outside the city, and I will leave later. This. Luan Zioki was tangled and wanted to persuade him again. But Wei Hong glared at him without allowing him to refuse. Luan Zioki had no choice but to take his people away quickly. They stayed just to watch the excitement, and now that they have been affected, they naturally have to withdraw immediately. Staying is just a burden. As for Wei Hong, he is still waiting. He doesn't want to miss any hope. Gradually, he found that every time the four magic weapons roared and collided, the spiritual particles in the palace would dissipate to the surroundings. Wei Hong knew that his chance had finally come. He didn't care about the struggle for imperial power and the fighting of immortal cultivators. Tonight he just wanted to take advantage of the fire and try real practice. Wealth and honor are sought in danger, give it a try. Wei Hong gritted his teeth and jumped off the tall building. His figure flashed and rushed towards the palace like a ghost. At the critical moment when countless people fled to the outer city with their families, Wei Hong was like a madman going against a flow. He broke into the most intense fighting area without hesitation and went straight to a block near the palace. There was a secret base he had already arranged. Chapter 274 Kingayan Sect, The Power of Immortal Cultivators. Boom boom boom. Be careful, get out of the way. Woo woo woo, mother. Save me. Waves of roars and screams continued to ring out. The inner city of the capital of the gods had already turned into purgatory. The four great magic weapons collided wildly in the air, constantly emitting shock waves. Countless houses collapsed and cracked. A large number of thunder, fireballs, and sword energy continued to fall to the ground, and the ground was full of ruins and charred corpses. At this moment, whether it was ordinary people or powerful and wealthy families, all of them became ants. Everyone was escaping in a panic, dragging their families and fleeing out, and they might be crushed into slag by the aftermath of this battle at any time. This is beyond human power. Wei Hong sighed in his heart, and finally saw the immortal cultivators who were fighting. Four groups of figures that seemed to be surrounded by clouds and mist floated above the palace. In the dark night, no one could spy on their figures. They could only vaguely see that the four immortal cultivators were surrounded by shields, talisman paper, sword energy and other things, which made them look as domineering as gods. Fairy Hanao, you dared to sacrifice millions of people in the capital of the Great Zhou to repair the 10,000 souls banner. Do you really think that our Kingayan sect is easy to bully? At this time, the male cultivator who controlled the flying sword could not help but scold. Haha, you are also worthy of the name of Kingayan sect? Kingayan sect has long been disintegrated, and you are just traitors. The woman who controlled the black banner sneered and ridiculed. Asshole, you are looking for death. Haha, what can you do to me? The other two people were furious and cursed each other. From the sound, it can be roughly heard that there are about 3 men and 1 woman, among which the man and woman of the 3 immortal sect are firmly in the upper hand, and the other 2 seem a little embarrassed. Wei Hong did not dare to spy too much, and rushed directly to the secret base he had already arranged. The speed was so fast that it almost left a residual image, and no one noticed in the chaotic night. As early as planning today, he kept it a secret from everyone and quietly bought a small house near the palace in the inner city, and then dug a secret room under the house. This secret room is 3 feet deep. It is reinforced with huge stones and wood, and it will not collapse even if the ground shakes. Unless Wei Hong is really unlucky enough to be attacked head-on by the immortal cultivators, he can basically guarantee his safety. It is not easy to be discovered when absorbing spiritual energy underground, and they are unlikely to notice him when fighting to the death above. Therefore, Wei Hong decided to take a risk. After a while, he quickly rushed to the vicinity of a ruin, looked around and found a small courtyard that was relatively intact, opened a hole under a big tree and rushed down. After a few breaths, he came to a stone room. It was only 10 feet in size, with a night pearl lighting up the top. The surroundings seemed very depressing. There was nothing except a golden silk cushion. At this moment, the golden silk cushion had automatically absorbed a lot of spiritual particles. They were floating in the air like dandelions. Ordinary people might not be able to see them, but Wei Hong could see them clearly. Good, good, good. Wei Hong was ecstatic. He did not sit cross-legged on the golden silk cushion to practice, but lay directly on the stone floor and performed the tortoise breathing technique. His breathing and heartbeat weakened rapidly. Soon he became like a dead person. Even if there were fluctuations in spiritual energy that attracted the attention of the cultivators, if they had a way to scan the ground, they would probably regard it as a corpse, right? Wei Hong didn't know whether this folk method could deceive the cultivators. But even if there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, he was still willing to try it. Then he began to visualize the divine intention of the 5 elements key training art in his consciousness, and a 5-element mountain appeared vividly in his mind. Buzz! His body seemed to have turned into a black hole for some reason. The spiritual energy particles around him began to be slowly absorbed. As soon as these spiritual energies entered his body, they were like water drops falling on a dry desert. Before they entered the meridians, they were absorbed by the flesh and blood. He had tried this phenomenon last time, so there was no surprise. He continued to let his flesh and blood absorb the spiritual energy, constantly strengthening and nourishing his body. Gradually, many unknown changes occurred in Wei Hong's body. In the past, although his body was strong, he had some minor hidden injuries. Although his blood and qi were abundant, there were some blockages in some subtle places. No matter how strong his body was, it seemed that there was a limit. But today, all these obscure places disappeared without a trace. He was like returning to the mother's body. His body was constantly transformed and strengthened under the nourishment of spiritual energy. There was a vague feeling of transcendence. Hiss. Wei Hong was secretly surprised. This kind of spiritual energy is really terrifying. If you are in a place with rich spiritual energy, I am afraid that even a mortal who does not practice will be able to pull 1,000 pounds. I don't know how long it took. When Wei Hong's body gradually absorbed the spiritual energy particles were absorbed into the meridians, and began to circulate continuously according to the rules of the 5 elements key training formula, controlled by his mind. Wei Hong could clearly feel how they operated in his body, and gradually a feeling of control rose up, just like controlling the inner force. Finally, the spiritual energy particles gathered into a trace of spiritual energy in the meridians, and began to slowly flow into the danshan. After all, spiritual energy is a higher energy than internal force. Even if they only have a pitiful trace, which is more than 10,000 times less than Wei Hong's surging Zhengjin internal force, they still occupy the most central position in the danshan, suppressing the internal force and not daring to approach. The two sides are like the positive and negative poles of a magnet. Once they get close, they will repel each other, and they are simply incompatible. 100 spiritual energy particles turn into a thread, 100 threads turn into a strand, and 100 strands turn into a strand. There is a saying in the 5 elements key training secret that after accumulating a strand of spiritual energy, it can be condensed into a spiritual energy group. From then on, it is considered to have entered the first level of key training and become a true immortal cultivator. Wei Hong secretly calculated in his heart. He found that he could absorb 5 strands of spiritual energy in a cup of tea. If calculated in this way, he would have to maintain at least a few years of hard practice before he would have the opportunity to enter the first level of key training. I don't know if it's because the concentration of spiritual energy is too low, or because the proficiency of the technique is too low. If the 5 elements key training technique is pushed to the limit, the speed of practice can be increased, but in this way, the noise will definitely be louder, and it will easily alarm the immortal cultivators fighting above. Thinking of this, Wei Hong decisively gave up his unrealistic hopes and no longer considered breaking through to the first level of key training. Instead, he thought about whether the few strands of spiritual energy in his danshan could gain greater benefits for himself. It is obviously unrealistic to rely on them to enhance combat effectiveness. No matter how powerful the energy is, it cannot exert combat effectiveness if the quantity is too scarce. But Wei Hong still has a storage bag in his hand. If he can open it, wouldn't it be equivalent to opening a treasure? Try it. Wei Hong hurriedly took out the storage bag that he had treasured for a long time from his arms with expectation. Chapter 275 Storage Bag, Spirit Stone. More than half a year has passed since the Kayandeo Lake incident. Since Wei Hong got the storage bag, he has been trying to open it, trying to get the real treasure of the immortal cultivator inside, but unfortunately he has never succeeded. Now he has finally cultivated a few strands of spiritual power. Can they open this storage bag for him? Ancestors bless you. Wei Hong muttered expectantly. He decisively controlled a trace of spiritual power to slowly reach his fingers, and then injected it into the storage bag. The golden silk pattern cloth bag was dimly lit, and then the bag mouth that had been unable to be pulled open was quietly opened, revealing a dark space. Wei Hong tentatively reached his hand in. He found that the space inside was very large, and his palm faintly touched many strange things. He gritted his teeth and emptied the bag, and a pile of things appeared in front of him. What is this? Wei Hong couldn't help but frown. This pile of stuff was somewhat different from the immortal treasures he imagined. It was roughly like a pile of garbage, with only a pile of powder and dust, dozens of crystal-like stones, more than 10 jade bottles, and 3 jade boxes. Is this a spiritual stone? Wei Hong picked up a crystal stone and roughly guessed what it was. After all, there was still some spiritual power fluctuations inside it. But it was obvious that they were not complete spiritual stones. Wei Hong tentatively pinched it, and the crystal in his hand immediately broke into a pile of powder, and a large number of spiritual particles were added to the air. Hiss. He was distressed and hurriedly used his power to absorb these spiritual energy. It can be seen that the powder and dust poured out of the storage bag are probably the product of the exhaustion of spiritual stones. Now this pile of spiritual stones are only half damaged and defective, and the spiritual energy inside is already 1/100th of one. A total of 32 pieces. Wei Hong carefully put them aside. Although they don't have much spiritual energy, there is still some. With these waste spiritual stones in hand, Wei Hong can open the storage bag even if he goes anywhere. This is good news. After all, he has a lot of treasures that cannot be seen in the light. If he could put all these things into the storage bag and carry them with him, he would not only be able to go anywhere conveniently, but also be able to burst out the strongest combat power at any time, not to mention not having to worry about being exposed. How tempting is such a divine weapon to ordinary people. Now that the things in the storage bag have all been poured out, Wei Hong reached in and fumbled around again, and found that there was a space about 5 feet square inside. This is probably equivalent to an ordinary box. Although it is not big, it is still no problem to put some important things in it. Not bad, not bad. Wei Hong smiled with satisfaction and continued to count the things on the ground. The dozen or so jade bottles were obviously filled with elixirs, but after thousands of years, the elixirs had long since turned into a pile of black, smelly, and dried filth. The contents of the 3 jade boxes were well preserved. They respectively contained a palm-sized black flag, a crystal-clear jade plaque that exuded a faint fluorescence, and an exquisite jade white hairbrush. What is this? Wei Hong tentatively mobilized a few strands of spiritual power and injected them into the 3 items. The black flag and the writing brush lit up for a moment, then dimmed again. It was obvious that the spiritual power input was too weak to wake them up. The jade token did not react at all. He looked left and right but could not see any clues. Wei Hong could only guard the treasure mountain without knowing how to use it. Forget it, forget it. Now I only have a vague understanding of the matter of cultivating immortals. It is still too difficult to figure it out by myself. I will keep it for now. After all, it is a treasure of cultivating immortals. Wei Hong sighed for a while and quickly put them away. Hearing the roar of battle still coming from the outside world, he estimated the time and decided to continue absorbing spiritual energy. After all, only by storing more spiritual energy in his danshin can he use the storage bag normally. Although this thing is just a cloth bag, but it is of great use to Wei Hong. Today's adventure seems to have gained a lot, but in fact, the only thing that can be used is the storage bag. Buzz! Wei Hong calmed down and continued to absorb spiritual energy silently. At the same time, his ears were still paying attention to the movements outside. Once the movements outside stopped, he had to stop absorbing immediately, otherwise he would be easily discovered by the immortal cultivators. At this moment, Wei Hong was like a little mouse stealing food in a rice warehouse. Although the probability of being discovered was very low, it was always right to be cautious. Gradually, the fighting noise outside became smaller. Wei Hong immediately and decisively gave up absorbing spiritual energy, and instead tried his best to operate the turtle breathing technique, and put the golden silk cushion and other things into the storage bag for storage. There are only 12 strands of spiritual energy in the danshin. It takes a strand of spiritual energy to open and close the storage bag, and it can be opened 6 times in total. In addition, There are 32 waste spiritual stones in the storage bag. Although the spiritual energy inside them is thin, it is always stronger than what I slowly absorb. When it is used up, it can be directly absorbed from the spiritual stones. In this way, this storage bag can be used for a long time. Wei Hong secretly calculated for a while. Suddenly, he heard a more intense fighting sound from the outside world, and at the same time, the ground was shaking constantly. This made him, who had originally wanted to play dead and hide, change his face drastically, and immediately decided to change his mind and evacuate first. Boom! Wei Hong had just left the underground stone chamber and returned to the ground. A huge fireball hit fiercely 100 feet away, and the terrifying heat wave and various soil splashed in, directly smashing a deep pit on the ground. The surrounding buildings melted and burned, turning into raging fire. Wei Hong was also thrown out by the terrifying shock wave, and his clothes had long been torn by the rubble. Looking at the cave he had just entered and exited, it had also collapsed. If he had just run away decisively, he would have been buried underground. Who? Wei Hong lay on the ground and gasped heavily. Although he was not injured, he did not flee to the outer city in a panic. Instead, he focused on the battle situation in the sky, and saw that the situation of the 4 cultivators fighting each other had changed without knowing when. There was a light boat in the sky above the palace. It was as slender and crystal as a willow leaf, emitting a faint spiritual light, and a young man in a Taoist robe stood on it. He controlled a flying sword to fly up and down, and the sword energy cut through the night sky. It was easy to force the 2 cultivators of the 3 immortal sect to retreat step by step. No matter how they used various means, the 2 magical instruments, the black flag and the cattail leaf fan, were constantly swaying, and the light was constantly dimming. Gu Fengyan, do you really want to do this to the extreme? The woman of the 3 immortal sect who controlled the black flag shouted angrily. The Sin domain is the private property of my Kingayan sect. When will it be your turn to make trouble here? You also want to sacrifice the blood of millions of people in the Great Zhou to repair the 10,000 souls banner. You are so bold. The young man in the Taoist robe shouted coldly, and his offensive became more and more fierce. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.